For our recording.
Okay,
Okay, thank you. All right, welcome everybody. Today is Tuesday, February 10th, 2026. The time is 4:00 p.m. and we are convened as the Provo City School Board of Education. We are meeting at 280 West and 940 North in Provo, Utah, and we will begin with a roll call. I'm Jennifer Partridge, Board President.
Gina Hales, Board Vice President.
Melanie Hall, Board Member.
Lisa Boyce, Board Member.
Meg Van Wagenen, Board Member.
Rachel Rose, Student Board Member.
Bailey Lindstrom, Student Board Member.
Emily Harrison, Board Member.
Terry McKay, Board Member.
Devin Daly, Business Administrator.
Wendy Dow, Superintendent.
Okay, thank you. And we want to welcome everyone who's joining us today and thank our tech department and our wonderful assistant Bonnie for all of your support to make our meetings possible. Do we have a motion to convene our study session?
I move that we convene our study session.
Motion made by Board Member Boyce. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Board Member Hall. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we are now in study session and we are going to begin with our board member training and we're going to turn it over to our student board member, Bailey Lindstrom.
So the part of the handbook that I went over was the district mission, vision, and core values. Our mission is to welcome, educate, and inspire. And then the vision is just to make sure that our district is a good learning environment and that students are getting what they need and that they can become lifelong learners and just always be learning. Some of the core values, the first one's belonging and just having a welcoming environment and everyone knows that they matter and that they're important and feel supported. The next one is growth, just striving to have continuous improvement and success. And then the next one's empowerment, just providing tools and resources to make sure that we're achieving our goals and building confidence while we're learning. And then creativity, just encouraging imagination and critical thinking and things like that. And then having a good community, just building relationships between schools and teachers and parents and making sure that students' needs are getting met so that they can be so that they can get the best education.
Thank you. Perfect.
Thank you. And thank you to, I assume it's our communications department here that made these wonderful signs that highlight our strategic plan and the aspects that Bailey just went over as well. So we can have it reminding us every time we walk in here. So, all right, thank you, Bailey. Next is item number 5. We will now discuss our nursing contract restructure, and I will turn it over to Superintendent Wendy Dow for that discussion.
She's going to turn it over to
Oh,
me.
turn
it over to Devin.
Just kidding.
She's
We're
still
turning over
looking.
to Business Administrator Devin Daly.
So I'm just going to give you a little bit of a background, a history of it. So we've been contracting with the county for our nurses for quite a few years. As far as I can go back in our system financially, the first contract I see is 2011-12, the fiscal year 2012, which is the first year that we have all of our financial information in the system. The contract back then was just over $200,000, and it was for 1.5 regular ed nurses and for 1 special ed nurse, so 2.5 nurses. That to a few years ago in 2022-23, the cost of the contract had grown significantly. And so we'd made an arrangement for the county to have, we'd grown to 7 nurses, 2 special ed and 5 regular nurses. But there wasn't, we needed to minimize the cost of that contract, so we went with 3 full-time nurses year-round. One of those was helpful in covering like big springs. And then 4 that were 10-month contracts. So basically a teacher contract at 186 days. Yeah. But the county kept them employed full-time for that for that time as well. They had additional funding from the opioid. The two O's are a little challenging. Settlement that was given, and some other, there was still ESSER funding for a while. And that's where, when it started growing significantly, so back in 2012 it was about 240,000, 220,000, and then right now this year's contract is 930,000. So it's and that's with the 3 full-time and 400 or the 4 10-month contracts. So part of that contract is a significant amount of overhead from the county. And then last year was the first year, well, we've had 3 years of not staying on contract. So the first year we paid $191,000 over what was agreed upon because of additional services or hours that they had, or additional overtime or overhead. And then the second year was about $120,000 over the contract. And 2025, we actually paid just a little less than the contract because there were hours that were used on the county side. But where we don't know that, we got a bill each of the 2 years in August, 2 months after the end of the fiscal year, and because it's for prior year, we still have to accrue it back into that year. We always have a little bit of a cushion in our budget to make sure that we don't go over budget, because it's illegal for us to go over budget. So we made the determination last, well, I mean, I guess it's been a few months ago to go.
Can I interrupt with
Yes.
a question? So when you said 930,000, but then you say we do have a cushion, or that additional?
No, just in the budget overall, not in the nurse's budget, but
The 120,000, is that in addition to the 930?
so at
Or is
that
that
point, the
rolled in?
contract was 856, and then it was 120 on top of that.
Okay, so that's what we paid out total.
Yeah, and then the year before it was 748, and we paid almost 200 more
Okay.
than that. So we budgeted 748 for the nurse's contract, but it came in at almost $1 million for that year, for both years actually. And there are other reasons why we had made the decision to bring it in-house, just with some of the being able to create our own program and know what it is that we needed, and be able to marry kind of all of our programs a little bit better. So we've really worked hard on trying to go forward with an agreement, and something that is fair. A couple of challenges that we've had are the nurses of the county don't pay into Social Security. So that amount has generally, correct me if I'm wrong, Heather, but part of that goes into their match in their 401k, correct? Or at least the dollar amount.
So the county puts 6.2% in a 401k, where they would normally, so yeah.
Because so in the Social
status
Security
is-
agreement, it's 6.2% that we put in, and then the employees put in 6.2%. And when you're creating, there's some government provisions that allow you to not pay into Social Security. But the non-benefit of that is you don't get to file for Social Security when you retire.
But that money then just in your own 401k,
Right.
so it's more flexible in that.
Correct.
Or grows in that.
Yep.
funding as opposed to-
So that was one of the challenges as we were going through, and then the second challenge is there, just like there are districts that don't charge employees for insurance at all, the county also does not do that. So as we're looking at the contracts, especially those 4 that were 10-month contracts, for us, that means 186 days, because that's where we're at. But when I try to take the hourly rate of what they were getting as a contract and creating a 6.5% increase, just so that we don't have that, so that there's money in there for Social Security that they're going to be paying, and then multiply it by those days, the amount of the pay it is significantly less. They're working less days there, but I mean the hourly rate is higher. And when I compare it, I've talked to about 8 other districts in the last couple of days, and the hourly rate is right commensurate. Actually, it's a little higher in what we're proposing than what other districts are paying hourly.
Devin?
Yes.
Can you clarify that? So the hourly rate, if we keep everything the same and they just get 6.2% less because it's going to Social Security, is what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay.
So and it's 6.2% more, and it was we did 6.5. So we took the hourly rate, took the annual salary, divided by 260 days because their contracts are all based on real year-round. So they're paid holidays. Where we are paid, our contracts are a little different in a school district. We pay number of days, not every day. So holidays are not paid, you just don't work them. We took that divided by the number of days, divided by the number of hours to get the approximate hourly rate, and then multiplied that by 1.062 or 065 to figure out what that hourly rate would be with that Social Security. But with the lower days, it does decrease the contract amount total, because we don't have budget to do 244 days for everyone, and we weren't paying the county for that either. The county was paying for the other 60 days for each of those 4 nurses. Yes.
And for the full-time nurses, is their pay also going down, or is their pay staying approximately the same?
So the only difference when you look at what the salary is to what we're proposing now with the educator salary adjustment in there, the total salary is about $12,000 more than it was at the county. But this Social Security is $12,000 more, or
So
about
for them, it's
$12,000.
a wash if they're the full-time.
Other than the health insurance amount.
Right. Okay.
But
right.
we're not create
sure.
a different
Okay.
class of employees that don't have to pay for health insurance would be really a challenge.
Yeah. Okay. So the biggest change is for the 4 that have a 10-month contract.
Correct.
Okay.
So what we tried to do, so we took the 7 and put it at 6, because that was one of the things that we were kind of playing with keeping the cost and being able to pay at least most of them about what they were getting before. And we put 4 of them, 2 are still year-round, because one is special ed, works with the ESY program. One would be the nurse, kind of the supervisor of the group, and then 4 at 217 days, which is the most on a certified that we have. Right now we've got a few that are on special assignment that have 244 days. Just for reference, our instructional coaches are 106 plus 20 days. So this would be 217 days in their contract.
You said 4 of the nurses.
4 of the nurses
4
would be
200 would be
207. Yeah, so it would go from the 186 to the 217s to try to at least match a salary. But the salary still, it's not enough to cover Social Security and health insurance. It's
So the
just,
overall package
so
is
overall
just
package
a
is
reduction.
less, but there are fewer days. So I know that it's hard to talk about it analytically, because that's my brain is that I do love people, but knowing that it's impacting people at the same time, but also we need to we're looking at the whole district and not just a group. So it's a process. Anyway, questions, Meg?
So with the current kind of proposed contract, how much roughly are we saving from the previous contract with the county? Like, if we were to approve what is before us tonight?
So if we'd done the
What's the
186 and the 2 full-time,
Yeah.
we would have saved the 150,000,
Okay.
which is what that amount was.
Okay.
When we add in the 217 for 6, and then we are also paying for malpractice insurance, professional development, memberships into organizations, kind of things that we don't do for our teachers, but we're this is something we would save probably right around 40 to 50,000.
Okay.
Can you show them the spreadsheet? Or does it have names on it?
It does not. I numbered them.
That might be helpful.
Can I ask one question?
Sure.
Like, looking at the information that Heather gave us around nursing assignments, I just was looking through those a bit. It feels like down a nurse feels really challenging when I look at the load there. Would we have someone at those schools then backing up the needs? Do you know what I'm saying? Like a health
We have a health clerk
clerk
at
at
every
every
school.
okay. Okay, that's what I just wanted to clarify because that just.
And that is something that we
I have a question about the health clerk.
And that is something that there aren't any other school districts that offer the health clerk at every school.
Right, I think.
We put that in place with ESSER funds at the very beginning. Yay for ESSER funds. But, you know, it's something that the schools found a lot of value in and that the nurses really enjoyed having, so.
I guess even with that though, just thinking from a nurse's brain, there's still things that, even though the health clerks do alleviate some of the load, but there's still things that they just can't do. And I do see the consternation and the worry that our nurses are now going to be delegating more on their license. And that I can see where there's concern about that, and being down a person adds to that. And so I think I don't know, it'd be helpful to kind of hear more the health clerks, what they are able to do, what they do have to then consult with the nurse, and if the nurse is not visiting a school weekly, what does that just look like on their workflow?
We have Heather
Is that-
answer that.
is that
Heather's
right?
here.
Yeah.
We asked her to come. so
I know,
she
that's
can
why I didn't want to
answer
put you on the
some of
spot,
these
so I'm
questions.
speaking into.
Okay,
That
so
would be
you're
very
wondering, if I hear you, you're wondering what it would look like if a nurse is not visiting the school once a week
Yes.
and how that would look. So
Tell us what the
okay.
health clerk
And then what the
does
health
and what kinds of
clerks-
things
Okay.
you're delegating to
You
them
probably
and that you're
need to
overseeing.
stand
Okay.
up for the camera.
All right.
Or come to the
So
front.
you could come to the front.
Okay.
Yeah, help us understand the health clerks
Okay.
and kind of
Right
how
up
the
there.
delegating.
Got it, okay. So we aren't the only district in the state that has health clerks. We were the first in the state that had health clerks. And it's been going for 10 years. So I don't know if ESSER funds were around 10 years ago, were they?
We didn't hire them in every school until we had ESSER
Oh,
funds.
okay. Yeah, I'm not privy to all that. So anyway, the health clerk is a CNA trained person who functions as an unlicensed assistive personnel. So under the Nurse Practice Act, in a school setting, nurses can delegate to unlicensed people tasks that need to be done in a school setting because they understand that schools don't hire a nurse for every school and that funding is kind of limited that way. So the health clerk does things like the general, like first aid. A kid comes in, needs a Band-Aid, needs a pack of ice, they help with that. We also delegate all diabetic care to our health clerks. So if a student needs their lunch dose given, then the RN has done extensive training with that health clerk and delegated that task to them. We delegate medication administration, G-tube feeds, catheters, anything that a kid needs to come to school and then access their free education. That's what the nurse delegates to the health clerk. They help with like our immunizations, they'll do some follow-up with that. However, the ultimate reporting lands on the nurse. They will help with like maybe a vision call or as new students register, they will do like a vision screen, the initial screen, and then if they don't pass with them, then the RN has to do the official referral. So there is some like it's challenging because a lot of people think, oh, all those needs are met. But when we're looking at eliminating another nurse, we're looking at that much more clinical oversight that she's now delegating to someone else, and the ability to do that well, and the follow-up. That's the thing, is you want to be able to follow up and see weekly that these health clerks are following the delegation procedures that you've given them. And if you're not seeing them weekly, then you're at least weekly, then you really, it could go a week or two and they've been doing something completely wrong. And then that impacts student safety and the nurse's license. So that's the challenge that we're kind of looking at. Did I answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
And just to clarify, so you can delegate like giving insulin?
We can delegate insulin. It's very uncommon for other nurses. Yeah. So insulin is a very dangerous medication in the hospital setting. You have to have like 2 people look at it, 2 nurses look at it, and say it's okay to give. But in a school setting, we're just like, give them insulin, no big deal. Like, we can do this. So there are some very important like training things that we put in place so that our health clerks are okay to do that. Prior to health clerks, we delegated to a teacher, a secretary, and even an aide. So we do feel like having a health clerk as a designated person to delegate to, because they're getting weekly trainings, they're getting weekly check-ins with the nurses. We feel like that's a safer option, and we appreciate that about Provo. But again, if you were to cut nursing, none of that oversight changes. It just would increase per nurse.
So a couple questions. There's the consideration of the pay, but there's also the consideration of the load for
Right.
each nurse, and it looks like we might need to pick one or the other. So what should we prioritize in that? And maybe I'll ask my other question in case it's all related. I mean, looking at the nurses that aren't the full-time get 30 days above like a normal school year. Do they really need that many days, or could we trim down some of the days to try to make this all work?
Yeah, I appreciate you looking at like the other options. Along with the pay, all of us have kind of figured out what that would look like, and we're really losing about 10 to 30,000, but depending on what our benefits are, what our time off is, all those things. So it's not really a wash when it comes to the pay. And then the workload increasing, tell me your question with that, like you were wondering if you have to pick one or the other, well, and if...
Well, so in this option where we go down by one nurse, it looks like the pay is the same or better, but then you're down a nurse. Or do you not get quite the days in the pay and yet you have the same number of nurses, is what it looks like our
Yeah.
decision is right here.
So the workload won't change. The less days, the same work will need to be to get done. During the summertime, we do a lot of staff training for CPR, and we do prepping for all the immunizations. The WPU is tied to immunizations, so we spend a lot of time making sure that those are compliant so that we don't lose money. So there is time that's spent during the summer, and so like asking for a shorter contract, maybe that could work, but then again, knowing that that workload isn't going to change, and also the pay isn't the same. So from what everyone's putting into their budgets and they're figuring it out, everyone's finding that they're going to be losing 10 to 30,000.
If we stay with the 7, right?
If we
go
go
to 6.
to the 6.
Can you help me understand that, Heather? Because
This
I'm not
looks
I'm not
different.
seeing that.
Right.
So
So
because are you talking about the fact that you get vacation pay, and when you get vacation pay, then you get time and a half for that? We don't allow that because you just get the day off. Is
Right.
that what you're calculating into that?
I would personally lose 27,000. I would lose it in my 401k match. I would lose it in the time off I get, paid time off. So I just added those dates in. If I was not counting paid time off, I would still lose about $1,440 a month in take home. My son's an accountant and helped me put together a spreadsheet, so we kind of plugged everything in there, and we are finding that we are coming out lower, even though it looks higher. And then we were told that the salary enhancement may or may not be there, so in a year.
No, the salary enhancement will be there.
As
Oh,
long,
okay.
as long as
We're-
as long as the legislature votes for it to be there, there's no indication that they're going to change that. So
Okay, so I misunderstood that, but, and so, yeah, the workload won't change, the hours won't change. So really, we're in a pickle, right? Like, it's challenging. I understand that you're all looking at like budgets and how it's going to work. I appreciate all the hard work that Devin and Wendy have done. I don't have all the answers. I'm just sharing, like, from our perspective, what's the reality. And the truth of the matter is, I just want a sustainable, safe program. And if we're going to lose nurses because they can't, bottom line, they just can't do it, then we're going to be looking at a new program with new nurses, not a lot of institutional knowledge, not a lot of relationships that we've built, which is fine. It will happen. Like, people come in and do great things. It's not that it's not going to be okay. And we would just be committed to, like, helping do that as long as it lasts, you know what I mean? I'm not making any threats or anything, I'm just saying like the reality is it's like bottom line, and I know that the two aren't mathing, you know what I mean? So I understand.
So are you taking into consideration that the 244 people get 20 days of vacation along with the 6 days of PTO?
So you're saying because you were saying this.
So
what
let
are
me explain
vacation-
let me explain
Okay.
the legislative addition first. So
Okay.
what I was saying was the state is approving nurses to be part of that.
Mhm.
They're tentatively approving the budget, but what we see and what the people that qualify are not always the same. So
Got
we
it.
always fund people that qualify, even though the state doesn't always fund it. Because what they do is they assign a dollar amount for that budget line item. And then when it doesn't match what every district is getting, they just allocate based on the percentage of the people. So they may think they're funding us at 100% of that educator salary adjustment, but they're really only funding us at maybe 95%, which means the district always has to pay for part of those because they don't fund us completely.
That makes sense.
So that's not something that we would take away if the state didn't give us the money. That's something that is still going to be there, but you were making the argument that the state's going to be reimbursing us for that. Not necessarily
Got
is what I was
it. That
saying.
makes sense. Thank you.
And then the other piece, so you do still as a 244-day employee, whoever those are, will also get 20 days of vacation beyond the PTO and the sick.
So, and is that paid vacation?
So, I mean,
Or it's just vacation days
you
built into the
still
contract?
get the day paid if
Got
you're
it.
not there. It's just like a regular day of work. You're paid for it, you're just not there.
Got it.
So, yes.
But that wouldn't be for the 217
No,
nurses?
it's the only people that qualify for vacation are the 244,
Okay.
242-ish, yes.
Thank you, Devin. I'm glad you know it all like that.
I don't know it all. I don't know it all and I can't fix it all, but
I know.
I do know that we're trying our best to make sure that we're trying to create something that is, can be a good program, but that can also provide savings. Because, you know, you're saying there's more responsibility, and we're also asking other teachers in the budget considerations to take on more as well, because we're really trying to make sure we're looking at it as a holistic approach of what we're providing and what workload we can handle. So
Do you have other questions?
Somebody just walked me through this. So you're saying that we're one of the few districts that have a health clerk in every single school,
Yeah, there are
and that was due to COVID, right?
That's the way it started. So that we had a few that were kind of roving, but then we put them in every school when COVID happened, so that they could help with contact tracing.
So actually what happened is we started with 13 health clerks about 11 years ago at all the elementaries. And then we moved, then it was like, oh, these are great, we need them at our secondary, so then we moved to secondary schools maybe 3 years later. We did have some sub-health clerks that were working during COVID to help do some contact tracing. But they've always been we've always had the 13 at the elementary when the program first started, and then we added the 2 high schools and the 2 middle schools. Independence doesn't have a health clerk. So there's just at the 17 schools, there's a 29-hour-a-week health clerk.
Okay. So how does it work, like at a school that, like in a different district that doesn't have a health clerk? How does that work? Like, I'm just trying to understand.
So I
like-
worked that way before. So I had 7 schools, no health clerks, and so you just have the secretary does all the first aid that comes in, the principal maybe pitches in, an aide, maybe like a 504 aide picks up the diabetic care, you train your secretaries to do the medication. So it's really like the health clerks really help that main office operate very smoothly, and having that extra support for kids is like invaluable. Like we have over 32,000 office visits a year that are documented, and all of these kids are getting, like, their parents are either notified or that sort of thing, whereas before it's like head back to class, or call your parent and then they just go home. So it is like, yeah, without the health clerks, it's a little different, but you do delegate. So Nebo, Alpine, they all delegate to just secretaries or other school staff that they hope do it right.
Well, and I'd imagine as a nurse, I would much rather delegate on my license to a CNA trained person.
Right.
I mean, that's like the model in a hospital.
Right.
I have a CNA working with me. I'm delegating certain tasks, and they have training that supports that delegation.
Exactly.
And it sounds like our health clerks do have CNA.
Yes,
training, right?
generally, yeah.
Okay.
So we don't pay for them to get their CNA licenses redone because it's not really the same type of work, but that's kind of like, oh yeah, that's kind of like a minimum, right? Like, we would like you to have some little background, so yeah.
Okay, so I'm thinking about other districts, and I know there's no discussion about like ratios, and our ratios actually on paper look lower, nurse to patient load, or student, not patient, students. In others, like if you're looking at Alpine, is it the case though their elementary schools are just bigger, and so you're able to make those weekly visits because there's more students in one location?
Yeah,
Does that make sense? I'm trying to understand that kind of workflow.
Yeah, so
right,
like you look at it school number or student number, and
Yeah.
and it's kind of like you can look at it both ways, both sides. So like, am I at a school once a week with a 5 assignment, or am I at a school every 0.88, the 83 days? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think also our district's unique because we do have more Title I and more needs that way that maybe other districts don't have. So sometimes we do look at that like, oh, we
like
have.
those will change our acuity numbers.
Yeah.
Those are going to impact our acuity numbers.
Exactly.
Comparatively.
Yeah.
Thank you, Heather.
Thank you.
for-
Okay.
We appreciate,
That's all good.
we appreciate your expertise.
Thanks.
Thank you. All right. Discussion, thoughts? Meg, go for it.
You know, I feel like I am obviously as a nurse, I don't know all the ins and outs of being a school nurse, but I definitely can see when making kind of a big change, it feels like a big change, right? That we do want to set ourselves up for success and safety. And I'm not saying this, I think that efforts have been made on both ends, right, to really help this be as successful, but I guess I am concerned about is it worth putting a little bit more money in right now to just really set us up for success in transitioning from the oversight in the county health department, you know, helping us with our our school nurses, because I guess I really do just see the importance of maintaining retention of our school nurses, especially the ones we have right now, as we make this change.
Meaning change from 7 to 6.
Well, I guess more. I'm just thinking the change from Utah County oversight to them pulling them into our employees, and I definitely understand now that it's going to be tricky either way, right? You have nurses who have now they have 2 employers essentially. Right, until now they'll be moving they'll have a new employer or just not have 2, and there were certain benefits with Utah County that we just don't offer, and that's just like the nature of you're moving from one entity to another. I think that's just why I'm asking, like, what are the cost savings, right? Like, so if we stick with the 6 nurses is what we're going to do instead of 7, right? It's about 40,000, right? And just thinking about, okay, what if we're like, well, we're not going to look at saving money. Could 40,000, I guess, feels like a wash more or less. And there's not like, what can we do with 40,000?
And if we did
right?
7, we would be spending about 80,000 more than this year, so it would be an increase to the budget. Now, if we did 7 with 2 at 244 and 5 at 186, we would be almost breaking even to what we would, but there would be no savings this year, but it would be
But we then would still, I mean, the actual package though for some nurses would be
They
like,
would go
it is just
yeah.
less, it is naturally.
It would
less
match
than-
the number of days that most districts do, and the
Yeah.
districts that I've talked to, they're all on a teacher contract.
Yeah,
But, I mean, if we wanted to do 7 and at least keep it manageable and not necessarily have any savings, but not have it cost more, that would be the way you could do it.
So can you remind us again that there's more than the budget reason why we're making this change? So, because right now as we're only talking budget, I'm like, well then why are we changing things? So can you remind us please?
I feel like a couple of things happened as we worked with the county, and that is when they're not our employees, then we can't direct the work of these individuals. So, for example, if there is something that we need them to do that goes above and beyond, I can restructure that. I can't do that with the county within the confines that they have because they are the county's employee. And so then if something comes up, then I would have to contract with an outside agency to be able to provide those services. I also feel like that we have tried really hard to work with the county. I think I used the example in the email that I sent where Devin and I met and we were trying to figure out why we were charged the same amount of overhead as other districts that have twice, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times the number of students that we do, and they're just like, we just split it evenly and you have a lower nurse to student ratio. There was no budging on that number at all as we talked with them about a 35% overhead seemed really excessive to us. I'm concerned that with the other districts pulling out of that, we're going to be held responsible for that. I have no guarantees
Yeah,
that
I
we
don't
would.
think going back on that county decision
I don't think so.
moving, like, I
Yeah.
think we just move forward, the
Yeah.
Band-Aid's off, and just go ahead, you
Yeah.
know, like, it is what it is.
It is what it is. I agree. And I think the other piece that I didn't like was that when we tried to explain to them how difficult it was to budget, because what happens is my understanding is they don't charge us overtime. But if I have a 10-month nurse and the other 2 months are for the county, but they're spending more of their time with school district stuff so they don't get to their county stuff, then they bill us for the extra, and that's where that extra billing comes in. I'm like, you don't understand, like we can't budget like that. Like that doesn't, and those statements, like Devin said, would come in August, and that's after our budgeting year is over. And so I feel like we've tried really hard to explain to them those situations. They're just like, well, it is what it is. And so this is how it goes. And I don't feel like it's fair that we have to put in a budget every year. Well, let's put in 1.2 million in case it's that. What is going to be that cost control moving forward? Now I feel like we have some control over what the expectations of the nurses are. As I indicated, I think there are things that we're having them do that they probably don't need to do. Like have a nurse at every single student success team meeting. There's no reason for them to be there if there isn't a healthcare issue that's happening with that particular student. There's just different pieces of that that when I start looking at it, that's why we wanted them to be our employees so that we could direct that. And they are serving 2 masters in a sense.
yeah. Well, and I'd imagine some of those pieces that maybe they don't need to be doing all the things, there's some things, responsibilities or student success.
OPI curriculum or whatever,
Right, that
you might
maybe
not have to do that.
those they're gonna kind of
Right.
work themselves out. Those, I mean, I think that's uncertain, but they'll kind of work themselves out as we move forward.
That's right.
But I guess I can just understand the unknown, right? And stepping into this and feeling like, oh, I have more on my license, and that can feel.
Yeah.
When you're dealing with health, right? It's you have.
Because someone can
It's
die.
Safety, yeah.
Yeah.
These are safe, like life or death situations potentially, right? And I would imagine most days not, right?
Most days not.
And that's-
Most days it
right,
might
but
be
there's
something less.
that's just
yes.
something you're all there. You, as a nurse,
For
you're
sure.
gonna have to be.
So
navigating.
what is the proposal you want us to look at?
The one that Devin,
One that was up there, the
The
6
six one,
nurses, 2 at
244.
244 and 4
Could we
at
say
217.
something that so these are like grandfathered in nurses, that if new people come in, they start at a 186? I'm just,
We certainly can, and then provide extra days if they're doing CPR on top of that. So
this is an idea.
that's what that's what the other 2 districts in the county are doing. They're grandfathering them in at the salary that they were making, but the Alpine and Nebo never went down to a 10-month for any of their nurses, so it's not as painful for them. Plus, they have a little bit of a steeper tax base. They have more students, and so they have a little bit more money.
So they only have 12-month nurses, is that what you're saying?
They only have, well, no, there's a few that are like 0.75
Okay.
and then 0.5, depending on where they are. And then there will be a few that have chosen to go to lower days.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, sure.
so yes, the answer to your question
Okay.
is yes.
And what would the impact of that be for the budget?
Well, this would just be like, no, they'd be grandfathered and it'd be the same thing up there, but if new people came in, they would be
Sorry,
at one.
They
day.
would start,
We wouldn't do the
But
like
over
186
time,
plus the
have
days,
that,
like the
we didn't have that
217.
linked. So can you pull it back?
Yes, I can pull it back up.
You're saying 186 instead of the 217. That's right.
217.
Yeah.
So these, our current nurses would be grandfathered in. If they were to leave and we hire somebody new, the new contract would be at 186 plus whatever days. Just so that we start looking. I'm just,
Right, those are the
But 4 of our
expectations.
nurses presently, as I understand it, are already on a 10-month
Oh,
contract.
No, I know.
Is that correct? 4 of our nurses are already on a 10-month contract.
4
right
months,
now.
Us, but they
are-
work 12 months.
Oh,
Because the
I
county-
see.
the
So I was
county-
like, wait,
That's,
okay, thank you.
that's where
Thank you.
all of this
Okay,
disconnect
gotcha,
is
gotcha,
they've
sorry.
been working 12 months, but we've
It's
only
just
been
changing.
We've
paying
only
them.
had them here for 10.
Correct.
Okay, okay,
That's why the impact is a little bit different.
yeah, I can see that.
So, I had changed it to add the,
and
to
there's
see what that
nothing,
cost
so
would be.
there's no way that they can be a summer employee for the county?
I don't think the county does like hourly work. I mean, are there other things that could be done? Probably, just like our teachers that want to have a summer job, they go find a summer job, but I don't know how easy that would be as a nurse, so.
As you get new people though, you might get people who want to be on a same schedule as their own kids or something
Right.
and might be fine to,
That's what I'm saying,
Yeah.
but we have that in the future. It
Correct.
started at 186.
Yep. So when with the districts, all of the districts that I've spoken to, other than the 2 on either side, because they will hire them at the lower contract, starting up any new ones, are all on a teacher contract. So Box Elder's on a 178, Ogden's on a 183, so they, Canyons is on a 185 or 86. Anyway, so the ones that I've been checking with, those are all on that, basically what the 10-month contract was.
all right. So tonight in a business meeting, we have an agenda item to vote on this. So when we say as discussed in earlier meetings tonight, then it would be 6 nurses, as Devin outlined, with, in the future, moving new people to the 186.
To follow a teacher's salary, whatever teacher schedule is, because 186 might be different in the future. We may
It
not
could
want to
be
use.
a teacher, or you could put a teacher
Teacher
calendar,
schedule.
because it
Teacher
would be
calendar.
on the certified schedule, so I would
Certified
just say
schedule.
certified.
Certified
For
schedule.
4
Okay.
positions, you're hoping to find 4 positions willing to, is that what you're saying? that-
For the
Just
4
to-
that are not
just
full-time.
No, just anybody who gets some higher.
A new hire, that's
A
the
new hire.
position that would be offered.
I guess I'm just curious though, grandfathering, if we do that, is that though, there's still, it's just gonna be increased work in a shorter time frame.
Yeah, I think
That's what, I don't know if that's what I worry.
That's what I'm worried.
So can I
So
ask you a
if I can
question,
clarify
Heather?
this,
So right now, we have these 10-month contract nurses that we're paying for the 10 months, which is less than 217 days, and the other 2 months they're working for the county. What is it that's making us feel like we can't complete the work in that 10 months?
So we can, but what what has happened is the county's kind of been helpful because we were concerned about having to leave our schools for those hours that we weren't able to do district time. So the county's like, stay in your schools, we'll try and have you do the opioid prevention efforts while you're
or
there,
something.
and so we've been able to still have that presence in our schools, which has been invaluable because we're able to meet with our health clerks and be part of those team meetings and all those things. So there has been a benefit, even though the hours are being billed a little differently. The county, I think, as like a community, what warm wishes has allowed for that to happen. And we do get our work done, and I hope that it's satisfactory. Like I
No,
hear
it
you say
is.
you
No,
want
I
us to like be like appropriated to where you want, so I'm not sure, that might be a bigger conversation later about what you want. But yeah, we're able to get our work done, but we've added that extra component, so like teaching hasn't happened as much this year, or those other things that aren't legally required, then we've had to step back and say we can't do that. So does that answer it?
And the 217 was based purely on trying to make their salaries as close as possible. That was not this is how many days, but this is how many days would be required. And they would be able to do some of the CPR and the curriculum.
217
Could
versus
we-
186.
Could we make the motion that it's approve as with the 6 as you've outlined, with then moving forward, looking at evaluating, are these the right number of days, or would we adjust in the future for new hires?
Now, on contracts, when you offer a certain number of days, it would require job action. Jason can tell me if I'm wrong, but it would require job action to decrease the number of days.
I don't
She-
mean for
you're
current
You're
people.
talking about for
I mean-
future
Going
hires.
forward.
Yeah, I
moving
just mean like
forward.
Melanie said that then new hires would be this. Maybe right now we don't know what our new hires would be,
Yeah,
but that's
with the
something we
option.
would
Yep,
figure
we could
out
certainly
in the
put that.
meantime
I know.
and continue working on that.
Right, especially just not knowing how, just like, let's see how this transition goes.
Yeah.
And and yeah, then maybe there is, we will know better if offering going down to the 186 is possible.
Is feasible or not, right? 'Cause
We're entering new territory. You know, whoever comes, I mean, I'm still hoping it's Heather, but we're going to build a program that is going to meet the needs of our schools and our students, and we're going to figure that out as we go.
Lisa?
Well, I just feel like, so we're talking about something that, reportedly will be a reduction, not insignificant change in compensation for some of our nurses. And then we're talking about increasing kind of workload by going from 7 to 6, and now I hear us talking about, and potentially compressing the time they have to do that workload. So I just feel concerned about that in terms of the ask for our nurses. And so that's, I just feel concerned about
I
it.
think we also need to evaluate what they are doing, right? And perhaps take, like Wendy was saying, take some things off of their plate
that
in the
might help,
process.
so that before we say we're on a trajectory towards, because if
Well, that's what Jennifer's saying.
yeah, like really make sure that
Right, so, and I think we don't know what we don't know, and so it might work out great, or it might fail
feel like,
spectacularly.
why would
But Lisa, I see what you're talking about.
Like if
Is
I
it-
know that's gonna happen in 1 year, then even if I decide I can make the adjustments to stay with this plan, if I'm like, but the future sounds like it might just keep getting harder, I just worry about that messaging.
But
and
nobody with the
that
current
reality.
contract.
If we go and change a contract, that doesn't require board approval, but we would definitely be in very close communication with what the needs are.
Yeah.
We're not going to start, squeezing people just because we can. I think it's going to be based on what the needs are.
Okay. So
we're just gonna, this is what we're gonna
plan
vote
for
in.
6 as outlined and try it out. That's what we're doing.
We're going to jump off.
Or that's what we're voting on.
Or
I
rip
should
off
say.
the Band-Aid, I guess.
Okay.
But it doesn't feel like it's ripped off
Okay.
yet, so.
With no set plans for changing it for the. Okay. We will now
Well,
move.
but what I'm
yes.
saying with the change for the future is any new hires.
Right, and I think what the discussion has been is we don't know if that is feasible or if that would be asking too much by decreasing
Right.
their days,
I-
but
right,
in the
but
meantime.
in the meantime, I would like to look and see,
We
we
can-
also have a health clerk at every school, we're a smaller district.
Right,
We also, I mean,
so we can use this year to
to
assess.
figure things
and-
out,
Yeah,
but that's all I'm getting at.
I'm glad you brought it. All right, number A6, discussion of our adoption math curriculum, and we will turn it over to Judy Rose.
Thank you.
So I am here to share with you the Math Committee's recommendation to adopt HMH's Into Math version 2 for our elementary K-6 core program. And I'd love to share with you just a little bit of the process of this committee. I made myself a list so I could stay within my 10 minutes because I know you're a little behind schedule. On the committee, we have all 13 schools represented, and we have teachers from every grade level. They have met regularly for the last year and a half, really diving into all the things necessary to help them make this decision. They have looked at district-wide data. They've looked at teacher and student needs. They've dug into the core standards and essential standards, and they've really worked to identify what we value as a district in a core math program and what the best practices are for mathematics instruction. They created a rubric to help evaluate programs. We put out an RFP, and we had 13 submissions from that RFP. And then the committee really dug in and evaluated those programs. They narrowed it down to 2 really excellent choices. And once we had it down to 2, we had an open house where we invited the community and teachers to come and explore the program and give input on what program and the reasons that they would lean one way or the other. We also invited the publishers from the 2 programs to come and present to the committee. Once those things were done, the committee really just took a look at everything, the input from the teachers, the publisher presentations, the year of work of digging into these programs, and ultimately came to the decision that they recommend Into Math version 2. Some of the yes, Gina.
Really quick, do we have Into Math version 1 now? What do we have now?
We do. We have Into Math version 1, yeah. And while we've had version 1 for the last 6 years, there are some things about it that have been really challenging for teachers. And one of the things that really impressed the committee is that HMH, the parent company, really listened to feedback from districts and made some excellent improvements in version 2. So some of the things that were stumbling blocks have really been addressed. And version 2, while it's going to feel similar and look similar to teachers, it really has some updates that I think teachers are going to really appreciate. Also, another thing they considered as we narrowed it down to 2, like I said, the committee really realized what they had in front of them were 2 excellent programs. And if they're both excellent programs, the lift that would be required of teachers to set aside what's familiar to them and launch a whole new program if it were vastly better, I think that would be a different conversation, but the committee determined that the other program really wasn't, that they were fairly equal in that, and so the lift of a new program was a lot. So they recommend Into Math version 2 for adoption.
Can you explain to the public why we're looking at the curriculum again, why we're not just sticking with what we had?
Sure, yeah. So we adopted Into Math for 5 years, and then we extended it for a year. So the first reason is our contract is expired. We could simply just renew that contract and move on, but without really, we adopted that 6 years ago, and I think to really do our due diligence, we needed to see what is available and really explore other programs. It could be in that 6-year period that something else has been developed that is really better. So we hate to just assume that what we already have is the best thing that we can have. So we needed to explore everything and then make a decision.
Did the elementary math standards get updated as well in that time period?
They did, yeah, they've been updated. The big wrestle, originally when we started, we were an elementary secondary committee, and we had to split because the secondary standards really aren't finalized, but the elementary standards are set.
Melanie, did you?
Yeah, so how many people came to the open house?
I think it was kind of a record this time, which is great. We had, I don't remember the number exactly off the top of my head, but it was around 100 teachers came to that.
Do we have many people from the community come?
We didn't, but again, it was a record. Every time we've done this in the past, we've had 1 community member, and I think this time we had 4. So it was a record. Lisa.
And the cost differential of extending Into Math 1, like another year, version 1, versus what we're doing now.
Yeah.
And I know you can't really compare that, right, because this is for 7 years?
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah, you can
so-
a little bit. A 1-year, Devin can speak to this more exactly, but a 1-year extension is an extremely expensive way to go.
Yeah, I was trying to look back at last year, I remember when we extended.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's very expensive to extend for a year. Melanie?
And just for the public, we set aside this money every 7 years for for social studies, for math, all these things. So this is something that we plan in our budget as anyway,
Right.
so.
Yeah, we review programs on a cyclical basis every 5 to 7 years. We try to follow the standards being updated by the state to make sure that our curriculum is aligned with state core standards.
It used to be 5 because the state kind of started, well, they looked at more than 5-year contract negatively if you didn't write it into the RFP. So if you write it into the RFP that you're doing it for 7 years, you can do it for 7. And I feel like that was something that was really exciting for Judy, was so that they could become a little bit more comfortable with the training and getting people without having that worry of, well, I'm going to know it, and then in 2 years they're going to change it again.
Yeah.
So
One of the things that we would hear pretty consistently from teachers at the end of a 5-year adoption is, I just got this figured out. What do you mean we're looking at something new already? So 7 years really gives us an opportunity to give teachers a chance to really dig in and understand it, utilize it well. We have a very robust professional development plan for Into Math version 2 that we're excited about. We're planning to do kind of a soft launch on the March PD Day to let teachers know what's coming and what some of the changes are to the new program. They'll have access to the program starting with that PD Day for the rest of this year and through the summer. On the August PD Day, we're going to do a deep dive by grade level and really dig in and do some lesson and unit planning so teachers feel very prepared to launch into the school year. We're planning a system of one thing we hear from teachers is they really want to see programs modeled in their classrooms. So we're going to make sure that every elementary teacher has this new program modeled for them in their class with their students. So we're excited about the PD plan for this. Yeah, Gina.
So this is this 1 through 8? Get grades 1 through 8?
Kindergarten through 6.
K6. Oh, sorry, that's what I meant.
Yeah.
K6.
Yeah.
I've heard a lot of feedback from parents and even some things up on Capitol Hill about moving away from Chromebook use. Are these well, and then when we talk about maybe not having a one-to-one Chromebook use, I hear from building administrators as well as some teachers that it's just not possible. And so is this stuff that they can do off of Chromebook?
Yeah, we absolutely considered that and had discussions about that in this because we don't yet know the way that's going to go. Into Math works really well online and it works really well offline. So the resources are available in both ways. Things that students might access on their Chromebooks that are interactive, teachers can project and do it in a different way. So a lot of the presentation when the publisher came, a lot of the committee's questions were, what if we don't have Chromebooks? What does this look like? And Into Math was really able to speak to that very well.
Thank you.
We have a document that we're going to be sharing with you that Judy put together that shows what amounts of time at different grade levels are required to be on Chromebooks so that you can see how doable it is to actually, with our curriculum, and to reduce that Chromebook time. So.
Yeah.
I was happy to see all the manipulatives and
It's
the
awesome.
game activity pieces in there because
Yeah.
I felt like it might be tools for our teachers to not be on that computer.
Exactly.
Gina?
It's just kind of a follow-up. I'm just assuming that the PD that goes along with this will talk about manipulatives and offline usage as well as online usage.
Absolutely, yes, absolutely. Yeah, it's such an important component to instruction, yes. Yes.
Okay, any other questions for Judy? Okay, thank you, Judy.
Thank you.
All right, our next item is related and it's a large purchase request for the math curriculum. So Devin, anything you want to share with us on this? We have the documents attached.
you do have the documents attached. One is for the Spanish version and one is for the English version. The total is, I mean, it's a large price tag of what we will spend. It's about 1.8 million, a little over 1.8 million. Well, what we do, and this is accounting speak, but we split that up over the 7 years. So it's a 7-year contract, and so each year we'll write the check for the full amount at the beginning, but then we'll expense it over the 7 years of the contract.
Okay.
So there's not great big fluctuations in the budget every 5 to 7 years. It's pretty even across for all of the different curriculums.
And this 1.8 is English and Spanish.
English and Spanish, yes.
And is there a reason we don't, so we have English and Spanish, but we don't have French and Chinese and Portuguese?
Finding curriculum
I'm
in
sure,
those
I'm just
languages is a
asking
little
about
bit of
that.
a
Yeah, I know.
challenge.
I'm sure.
Especially where it's every other year
Yeah.
they're in English, and
Okay,
then the next
right,
year
right.
they're, so, yes, we are
Okay.
aware.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure. I
Judy could
understand.
speak to that more. I
That's okay.
answered it right
No,
though,
that's
because I
all right.
had the same question. Oh,
I didn't like when
so-
I felt like we were constrained in math curricular choices by trying to find the best of those offered in the following 5 languages. I felt
Right.
like that was a constraint that I didn't love. So this is, I'm
Judy,
just
did you have
curious.
something you wanted to?
If I can just, one of the components of the new version 2 into math that we were excited about, this isn't a full curriculum, but there is a feature in it that allows teachers to translate anything that they build. So for example, if grade level teams in French and English want to do common formative assessments, they can do those in English and French
Okay,
by
that's awesome.
translating them. So even though the French teachers aren't using that curriculum, they could use the same CFAs, which would be, I think, is
Yeah,
exciting.
it's awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. We will be voting on this in the business meeting. All right, the moment we've all been waiting for is item 8, our budget discussion. So I think I'll start by just kind of reminding us why we're doing this, and then we'll kind of try our best to go in an order here. But so budget discussion arrived here because we want to be good stewards of our money. That's number 3 of our strategic plan, right? Stewardship of resources. And as we are considering the needs in our district for more funding and things we want to do also to support our teachers and hopefully increase salaries, we wanted to also be mindful of our taxpayers and see what we can reduce or eliminate that would make sense to do to balance out those needs. And so our district leadership put together these spreadsheets with possible options. We have received hundreds of emails from our community, teachers, students, and I know I can speak for the board that we appreciate all of that feedback because it does help us make better decisions when we understand the impact it can have on people, on our students, on our teachers. So we're thankful for that, and we tried between all of us to have somebody write you back and thank you for your email, but it may not have, so if we missed your email, writing you back, know that we're still actually reading them and are appreciative and have taken all of those things into consideration. So on the list of possible things that we could eliminate or adjust was eSchool was first on the list, and we did take care of that at our last board meeting. We voted to restructure that with a savings of about $500,000 for our budget. And so tonight we're going to use this study session to go through as many other things as we can to see where the board is at on making a decision, and we want to prioritize right now. There's certain decisions that we need to make sooner because of how they impact staffing decisions for next year, and some of our other decisions can maybe wait for a future board meeting. So let's just start with Camp Big Springs. How about that? That is on the list as a possibility that could save us $300,000 if we eliminate it completely. So I'm just going to open it up to board members, including our students.
Can somebody tell me why it was $350 on one and now it's $300 on another?
Yeah, I saw that change. I don't know.
I have no
Yeah, I
idea.
have no idea either.
I probably typed it in wrong.
the original budget brainstorm had 350, but when you went to the proposal, the possible proposal,
It says
it just
300.
altered a little, so.
Well, I would say let's err on the side of caution. that it's
300,
only
300,
300,
yeah.
right? Especially
That's what I
because
have
some
on
of
that.
those employees we use throughout the year, whether they're doing Big
Yeah.
Springs or not. Right? So, Rachel,
For me, I definitely remember going to Camp Big Springs in 5th grade, and I think that's something that our elementary school students always really look forward to. And also introduce them to some of the students that they'll meet in the middle schools. But I do believe that I don't think it had the most significant impact on me personally. But I do think that it was a good bonding experience, and that it kind of introduces elementary school students to kind of the openness and how many people that they're able to meet and interact with in middle school. So if there's just a different opportunity of something where more students are able to interact with each other, that doesn't have to be as much of a longer camp situation, I think that could be a replacement. But I do know it's still something that a lot of kids are excited to be a part of.
I've been keeping track. The tally count so far is, and I haven't read all the emails yet, but 2 people said save Camp Big Springs. 21 said cut it, and one person had other idea, and one person who wrote in, I thought we had a good idea of coordinating better with the rec center for stuff in the summertime.
Do you want to tell them about your
So
meeting with
I have a
the-
meeting this week with the city. The rec department asked me if they could help us by creating an alternate for Big Springs at the rec center. So I have a meeting with them this week, and I'll see what that proposal is. So
I thought that was a great
so
idea.
coordination with the city.
Yeah.
Said if they only knew. But yes, we are working on that.
okay, Lisa, then Melanie.
Well, I did go back though, we recently had a survey around Camp Big Springs, and so I went back and reread, there's some overwhelming data on there. I think it may not have hit everyone's radar with this round of budgets the same way as it did then, and so I thought that was just helpful for me to remember that we have heard from a large part of the community around this and how much they love it. I appreciated, Rachel, what you're saying, that we should, the conversation I feel like really should be, what are some of the opportunities this is providing students, and what are some, if the decision is made to not do it as it has been done, what then can we put in place to still meet some of those needs for our student? I don't know, because I understand that this is complicated.
Go ahead, Melanie.
I was talking to a couple of constituents who had children that didn't get to go during the COVID year, and also when we had too much snow. And they said that they put their kids in a YMCA camp and said it was great. So they said they were able to find other options. One of my big things with Camp Big Springs is that it doesn't hit every single 5th grader as well. It only hits about half the kids. So I have a hard time keeping a program that doesn't benefit all children, all the 5th graders.
I feel the same way. I feel like it's something, it's fun, it's a great tradition for Provo. I went to Big Springs as a 5th grader, but I feel like it probably is not something that we should prioritize over other things that benefit more students, and I think it might be time to let it go.
Gina, go ahead, Gina.
Oh, I also went to Camp Big Springs in the 1800s, 1900s.
Were you all pushed your hand hard?
1900s. My daughter had the opportunity to go last year. I liked the program. I did like, we had a recommendation or a suggestion to maybe cut it back, which I wanted to look at, but it seems to me like we're not moving in that direction. That would be my, I would love to look at it, cutting it back. However, if we can have something similar or whatever with the city, but then that's not guaranteed. You guys are just hearing my stream of consciousness, my thoughts. Like I'm loath to cut it. To cut it completely. I would prefer to go to the half model that was recommended by the head counselor, the current head camp counselor. But I also recognize that that may not be an option.
I wonder with the half float, if there's a huge savings because they still have to go do the same setup and takedown as it would with the 4 week.
Right, I don't know.
I don't know if there'd be a huge savings, just maybe 2 weeks of
They're just saving on the personnel.
personnel for a
Which is
couple
the biggest
weeks.
cost, correct?
By half, are you saying stay half the time or a day program where we're not staying overnight?
He suggested
Three nights, I see.
3-day nights.
Okay.
And then that,
3
yeah,
days, 2
rather than a
nights.
full week.
Instead of right now, it's
Right.
It's 4 nights.
4 nights.
So it wouldn't serve any more children. It would just be less cost of staffing it. Would that be right?
I guess I feel like I should say I was available to go to Camp Get Big Springs since I was in 5th grade, but I did not get to go because my parents couldn't afford it. We were really poor back then. Unlike Gina and Emma.
I don't know.
Sorry.
I don't know why I got to go. I think when I went.
And
it
I was
cost
jealous because everybody else said it was awesome.
Well, and today, these days, our foundation has provided scholarships for those who
there's-
are in
that's
that
not a very-
situation,
There's a
right?
way everybody
I have
can go.
another question
Yeah.
about Camp Big Springs with more risk factors, like with risk. Do we have, are they wanting us to move away from these overnight types of things or?
Well, they would love for us to move away from all overnight things, and, but it's not something that they've come back and said that they won't allow us to.
I do remember, what was it, only like 2 years ago or something, we were discussing the future of Big Springs, and I was in the camp of the emotional and what a good experience it is, what Rachel spoke to, right? And it's worth it. But now that we're in serious budget discussions and seeing what a significant amount of budget it is, I mean, Lisa, you referenced the data we had from those surveys. I would answer that survey different today than I would back then, and I wonder if these
Seeing
emails,
all of the
these
frame.
emails that Terry has kept track of for us, I wonder if some of those also are answering it differently today than they would have. So, and I would entertain the idea of going the halftime or the shorter time if we were like, we're gonna keep it this way forever. But if it's just, let's try it out for a year and see, and then we might cut it, like then I say, let's just rip the Band-Aid and let's just do it.
All
And
the Band-Aids being.
I know, so many Band-Aids.
I'm
like,
out of
She's got a lot of Band-Aids over there.
Oh my gosh. Anyway, yeah, no, I get what you're saying, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, I understand that, and it's probably kind of where I am, even though that feels pretty bad.
Bailey.
I was thinking kind of the same thing as Rachel, if there's like an alternate activity just to get all the students together, because for me, Camp Big Springs wasn't my favorite, and like talking with my friends, we didn't love it, but we liked the idea of like getting to meet a bunch of the other kids from the different elementary schools, and then later going to middle school with them. It helped a lot with just knowing the people. So.
Maybe
That's
we do
really
a
good
summer
input.
party at Shoreline. All the new middle schoolers come and have a party for 5 hours.
There you go.
Call it. Good.
And we will make muffins.
I'll make muffins. I'll make cupcakes, whatever.
I've been regretting it ever since. I should have just marched to the back and taken him off. I'm like, why didn't I take him off?
All right, Mike.
I'm just going to add to that, in that, though I do want to just recognize, I think everyone who's been part of Camp Big Springs, I think did clearly communicate to us when we talked about it 2 years ago, that there is something in the time that the kids are there together. And I don't think any of us are diminishing that. I agree. I think this is probably time to maybe just, say farewell to this beloved tradition and honor it. But I also just recognize that it did create something special for many because of the structure of it, and they were together for an extended period of time.
And what you're saying, what Gina was saying too, like, I think it's important we acknowledge that our staff up there, like, they do really good work, and so this is nothing about them, but also thinking through our strategic plan, like how well does this meet our goals of the strategic plan? That's where we should be directing our money. Lisa?
A couple of things, just I guess to counter that though, that I keep thinking about is, you know, even in other districts where I've lived, my kids have had some kind of environmental camp, and being outdoors, even if you're not an indoor cat, but getting yourself into this uncomfortable space and then seeing the growth and the learning, I actually think it is an important part of what our strategic plan is talking about. From belonging and growth and these values that we have, but also like understanding the stewardship that our students have with the resources of the earth around them, understanding the environmental impact of, you know, the way we live our lives, and then some of those, you know, things that were part of the curriculum that my kids came home talking about. I don't see them getting that anywhere else really right now. And so I guess I would just wonder, like, again, when we talk about, okay, if we're removing something like this, what are the needs that have been addressed through this that I would want to make sure we were still doing? And part of that is getting our kids, students outside, getting them somewhere away from all the buildings and the roads, and having some kind of experience or two where they do something hard. They have a hike that's challenging. They're learning some things outside while they're doing it. I actually think that is a really valuable part of our students' well-rounded education, and so I don't know how or when we put things like that back in intentionally, but within our curriculum, but I think that is a loss that we will have and our students will have.
Could they still just do like a day thing though, where they hike up Camp Experience,
I
spend
mean,
the
that
afternoon there
would
and
be
hike
better
back
than,
down?
it
I'm
might
just
be
saying that
nothing.
these are things that we can talk about when she
With,
meets
and I meet with
them.
the city, it's,
Yeah.
I am making notes of
Yeah.
some of the
And
things
maybe we
that you
go-
would like to see, and maybe that's something that we can work into it, because it is city property.
So
So-
I didn't grow up here. So what we had is in 6th grade, we had 5 days, 1 week, where every day they bussed us up to their site or whatever, and we did all those nature kinds of things, and archery and all of it. So, but that would not help our budget this year. But yes, these are things to
I grew
explore
up
for
in
sure.
that
But then
box.
that affected everybody, right? You showed up for the school day, and that was your school day. It wasn't just those who opted in for it.
I grew up in Utah, we didn't have anything like this when I was.
I'm the same, I grew
So-
up in Sandy, we didn't do any
Yeah.
of this.
All right, so
Which is,
Gina, did you want to say something? Okay.
Well, that
Are
was
we
my
okay?
question is, so is Camp Big Spring happening this summer?
That's the
That's what
decision
we're
we're
going
making
to
right
decide.
now.
And
I think we
is
just pulled-
this summer the last summer?
no.
Or
Not
are
summer.
we, is
No,
this
this
it?
would be it.
But I think that the thing that would be nice about not having it is that you would save the 400,000 that you would, or excuse me, the 300,000 that you would put towards this year, and then you're saving that 300,000 from here on out. So, that was what we were thinking.
So are we okay to add this to our list of budget savings that we are going to discontinue Camp Big Spring?
Do we have to vote? I think we should vote.
No, you'll vote in business, you'll vote in business meeting.
Do we have it in?
Yeah,
business?
I put it, we put it on the,
Oh, okay. Oh, good. I'm sorry.
yeah, no.
Okay, well then we will vote on it in business meeting. So,
So thank you, Chad.
okay,
We'll do an awesome.
all right. Next, let's talk about CAS. So back in November, we gave direction about moving CAS from its currently at 2 sites, moving it down to 1, giving more support to kind of do a refresh on it and really make sure we're supporting our teachers to then meet the needs of the students that are in the program. And then once the budget discussions came up, it was kind of like, well, do we want to move forward with that, or if we could cut CAS and then save
It
that
won't
money
save us
and find other ways to meet those student needs.
It won't save us money. I think the CAS discussion has to happen absent the budget, in the sense that we don't really know what it would cost. We don't have the numbers around doing CAS or meeting these needs of the students in a magnet program versus non. So I do think we have to talk about it, but I just want to make sure from my perspective, it's not about the cost in any way because we don't actually know what the cost would be to do the program the right way within our neighborhood schools. Right? We don't know if that would mean we needed a GT teacher. We just don't know. So that I don't think that decision can be driven by the cost as much as what is the best way to meet students' needs. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense to me.
Well, I think
I
that's
had the same thought.
the best way to make this decision is what's best for the
Yeah.
students who need it, right? So
Yeah,
go
we
ahead, Mike.
started this discussion really last March, right, with the initial kind of data that Judy shared, and then September, kind of the proposal, and then November. So yeah, I feel the same as Lisa, that this conversation about how to do this better has been happening regardless of the budget, and I don't want to get them so tied up then we don't do what's best. That's how.
But I just want to make sure that we are hitting, there's more kids than just the 30
Yes.
that will be in this, or 90 kids that will be in this magnet group. There's a lot of kids that would benefit from having stuff in their neighborhood schools as well. So this is where, again, I don't know if we'd save money, this isn't, but I worry about having a magnet site that all of a sudden, oh, we have an opening in that classroom, so we just need to put somebody in there. I worry about,
Yeah, we'd have to make those decisions if we were to do it, right?
because this is kind of where we're at right now. Oh, we have openings, so we're gonna put people in there because it doesn't make sense, so.
Are you gonna be able to fill a magnet program is my big
That's-
concern right
that's
now,
my
because right
concern
now
too.
we have to lower the bar so
And
extensively
what is that
to fill
bar?
it.
Because to be truly gifted is pretty high bar.
And are we gonna run it if we have 10 kids that qualify and opt in,
And do
or,
they get
you know,
free
so.
and appropriate public education? I mean, the question really is like, so, and I looked back when 15 years ago, when they had one site and they bused kids,
Mm-hmm.
right? The bar was pretty high, and it wasn't just the two tests of the Iowa and the COGAT. You took the Iowa for the grade ahead of where you were even. So you had to hit that 95% benchmark as a third grader, for example, for the fourth grade Iowa. Because the Iowa looks at content, like what have you learned so far in the school versus the COGAT, which is looking at kind of cognitive, yeah. So, yeah, I think those would have to be the decisions, and that's the question, would we fill that? I don't know, right? And really, would we bus to it? Because I feel like if we did that, if we really decided to invest in that, then we would need to make sure every student had access, and that would be pretty expensive. I think that was pretty cost prohibitive.
That's partly why I heard
Yeah.
that's why we went to two sites, besides
But-
trying to get more people.
So they eliminated the bus,
But
but
they
at the same
eliminated-
time, they still had those in-school programs going on, so they had both going 15
Well,
years ago.
so I have
Yeah.
3 out of my 4 kids participated in CAFS.
Yeah.
So my oldest one was in it for his 6th grade year, which was 12 years ago, so that's how far back my institutional knowledge goes on that. And at the time, in the middle of 5th grade, he started skipping school because he was so bored, even though he had a seasoned teacher who was doing all she could to give him extensions and things. And we tried to get him in 5th grade, and they were too full.
Yeah,
And
they
luckily
were
they had
definitely
room
full
in
at one
6th grade, right? And then my next son, kind of a similar thing. We tried to get him in. I didn't think he'd need it, so we didn't apply in the real window. And then in 4th grade, our teacher was saying, you need to get him where he can get challenged more. And there wasn't room yet, and so he had to wait another year. But once we moved to 2 sites, and the district at the time provided less support and structure for what it would look like, then that's when we had trouble starting to fill it. And over time, as people have said, well, this program isn't what it used to be, then it's even harder to get people into it. But I think we're planning to really give them the support that they need. We're moving to the one site, which I remember back when we were talking about, when we were talking about the percentage of students. Generally, I think having a 1 class per grade level model fits with that better than a 2 class per grade level.
Right, with the amount of students who
Mhm.
accept their.
And there are, and we also said in November we would move to this model, but also then start working on how are we going to also support. It's going to take time, right? We're going to
So-
start with CAS, but then we will see what extensions we can offer for our teachers, for the kids who stay at their school.
I'm gonna throw this out there that if there's only 10 kids that qualify,
I
then
don't think that's a case.
I'm just saying. We
But
don't
right,
know-
then we decide
don't-
we
we
fund
don't
it
know,
anyway, right,
we
or
would-
not,
Are we
yeah.
funding it or not? But my question is, you know, we do want to support these kids. They're on one end, and there's other kids on the other end. But is that their least restrictive environment? Is going to their neighborhood
Right.
school the better place to put them and get them the help that they need at their neighborhood school?
Yeah, and that's the question, can we do that? Yeah.
Gina?
I have concerns about moving to one, especially when we're phasing out 2 schools, right? And then we're gonna be having another school, and I think it'll be very difficult to put it into one of the schools it's already in, because you're gonna have one classroom operating differently than the other 2 classrooms. Then on top of all of that, if we have 2.25 sites or whatever, or we have 3 sites, I don't know that we have the capacity. I don't know that at the district, we've got I shouldn't say we, because I'm not doing anything, but I don't know if there's the capacity to do all of that and see, because I would really like to move it to neighborhood schools, because I think we can serve the most students and fill most needs at neighborhood schools. But we don't have the capacity to run 3 sites and check out. I could be wrong, but and check that out. So that's one of my biggest concerns about moving to one site right now, is are we then going to water everything down, and we'll be running this for the next 2 years, and then we've burned everybody out. I don't
The
know.
only thing with that though, I think the 2 current sites, they're operating. I don't think that they're, from the district lens, I don't know
But they
what.
need support, correct?
The 2 current sites?
Yeah,
The 2
what
current
kind of
sites will
support do
need
they get?
support moving forward if we are to keep them.
If we keep them
Well,
and
it's
call it,
easy.
and that's where we're going to
Yeah,
revamp
that's what I'm saying.
and kind of refresh CAS, then absolutely support would be needed.
But if we're,
But we're going to one site then.
If you're just gonna phase those 2 sites out and then you're gonna revamp, right, Cass, those are still operating fine and they'll be
Just
able
the
to
way that they
phase
are.
out
but
fine.
don't they receive help, support now? So
Not
these,
extensively,
so the reason that,
no.
so what I'm hearing here is the reason these CAS programs are not succeeding is because we are not currently supporting them. Is that what I'm hearing? Because if they're not getting any support from us as a district, then we're not doing our jobs.
That's right.
Correct? And so we're now gonna phase out a program that's not working because we're not supporting them.
I also think when we and wasn't here, but I don't think that there were the expectations that were put in place for certain things about what had to be met. And so that has never been clarified, right? So the piece of it is, this is what gifted looks like, and these are the expectations that are in place that I think were there at one point. I don't know when that went away. I don't.
I just have a big problem with the fact that we're cutting a program because it's not effective, but they're not, at least a big part of the reason they're not effective is because we are not supporting them appropriately.
So in November, then we said we want to support it better, but also we're not cutting it, but just moving it down to one site.
I still think we're gonna have watered down support for everybody.
Lisa?
One of the pieces of the conversation in my mind is when I feel like, from what I've heard and from when I first moved here with my family versus later, when we had one site and we had, I think we had district support, we also had a principal at that site with there was a lot of alignment anyway around this thing, but it was also a piece that ran into secondary. And we had some clarity around what that path looked like, and whether you liked it or not. Some people liked pups, anecdotally didn't work out for my child, but I know how many people loved it. There was a path, like, we weren't just creating a program that ended in 6th grade. There was a series of opportunities that there was some clarity, at least around, that moved those students into secondary, right? And how they would continue to be supported. So whatever the decision is that we're making, I feel like we do need a K-12 alignment around, if we're saying, there are students who qualify because they have a set of needs, that we're gonna make sure we have some clarity as a district, and we're committed to the opportunities for those needs that don't just go away when you reach a certain age, but we're gonna support them with AP classes, or we're gonna support them with whatever those things look like when they get to the high school. So what is the whole strand? And I think that that's something that it would be great to like make sure we have clarity on also. Because I do think part of what happened, from my understanding at CAS, is that the state does not allow acceleration in the sense of you can't take 2 years of RISE testing, is this right, in like 4th or 5th grade. So when someone was like, why don't we do acceleration in English language arts? Well, there was extension and enrichment, but acceleration, the way a parent was asking me, my understanding is part of that is because you can't, within the state curriculum, is that wrong? Do those two testing, like you can't do
Your RISE test is assigned based on your grade level.
on your grade level, right. So in the math piece, when you
It's
got
different.
to 6th grade, that was different.
It's different.
So I think all of that sort of got in the water as decisions were being made around what that CAS day looked like for our teachers, right? Like, so there started to be more of a clarity maybe around acceleration in math, but less clarity around the scope and sequence of what we're doing in these other areas to still make sure we're hitting curriculum, but also having the rigor and challenge that these students need for it to be what it needs to be. From my perspective, I feel like I've heard a lot of pros and cons from people around neighborhood schools versus a specific magnet program. So I care most just that we meet the needs of these students in some way. I do know that there have been times when students have had excellent teachers in neighborhood schools trying to provide challenge for that student with maybe without tools or whatever. Maybe they did have tools but not succeeding, and that the magnet program did, to your point, meet the needs of that student. But I also know some students who have in other places where that rigor was within those classrooms, right? The teachers had what they needed to differentiate instruction. So it could be, if we moved it to a neighborhood and not a magnet site, that we use our awesome PLCs that we have, we're using that same data that they're already looking at. I feel like there's been a big investment in that. And then similar to how our MTSS team has given tools to use when a student is not where they need to be, like interventions, that there was also maybe a menu of extensions or some of those things. And that might work. And, you know, I know a teacher who said that in their district, they clustered kids within a grade, but they didn't have DLI programs, which complicates this for our district, but they cluster, like you take at a school these kids that maybe are testing high enough and they were in a class so that when that class did their smaller group activities, that teacher knew to do some of those gifted and talented things, but those teachers all had GT endorsements, and that would mean we would need a teacher at every grade, and that would be very expensive.
That's kind of what they used to do at Mazer when I was there.
Yeah, so there's just challenges to both things. That's why I think it would not necessarily be cheaper to do one versus the other if we sort out what we really need to do.
If you're in a school though, in all the schools, does it reach more students?
Potentially.
But are we ready for that for this next year? And
So I went back and read through Judy's report from a year ago, and it was enlightening to me to read it again and to say, in my opinion, this is not going to be very popular. I think we phase out CAS, both models, as we are right now. And we start this school year, 4th grade enrichment, however that looks. And then next year we add 5th, and the next year we add 6th. We are looking at, if we have 100% of the kids that are qualifying and only 20% are going to a magnet site, 20% are staying in DLI, and 60% are saying, I'm not leaving my neighborhood school. We are not helping those 60%. That is not good. We are not meeting the needs of those kids. And I think the parents that I talked to in my neighborhood who have said, like, oh, you know, how do you feel about CAS? And they're like, oh, my kid qualified, but I didn't want to send him there. I wanted him to stay in my neighborhood school.
We're also, though, that
the
data,
teacher.
in my view, is looking qualified, is looking at it maybe a different, I think we absolutely need to serve and increase rigor for all of our students. We have hardworking, high-achieving students. I think if you go back to the long ago test standard that had to hit, you had to hit the Iowa and the COGAT, 95th or higher. I think that is a smaller population than this data focused on. Is that right or not right?
I don't
Right,
know.
like when
I
we
don't
look
know
at the data from last year on who qualified but didn't choose to come, are we looking at people who were 95th or higher in every domain, COGAT
I think it's
and
80th
RISE?
percentile in NWE.
Yeah, no.
Yeah,
it was
so
definite-
that's
it was
just a
definitely
diff, that's all
more.
I'm saying, right? So yes, but, or yes and, we need to figure out who we're really targeting here. I mean, we're targeting every student, but specifically when we talk about how are we supporting our GT students, we have to be talking about those students and their needs.
Well, and I think to that point, we have students who need a lot of support with their learning. They have learning disabilities, or they're new to the country and don't even speak English, and we put a lot of effort and resources to help them, as we should.
Yeah.
We have a few and it granted is not necessarily a high percentage, but we do have students at the other end who need extra support that don't thrive in a traditional classroom. And I do think we need more rigor and enrichment for that big 20-25% near the top in our schools. And we need an option for these kids who need even something a little bit more. One of you referenced back in the day when they did the pullouts and things, and that was a fun thing for my kids, but it wasn't impacting their day-to-day experience in the classroom, or really helping them grow. I mean, we're talking with our NWA, we want every student to have growth. And we got a lot of emails from our current CAS families that a lot of them did talk about that their student was just not even learning anything and until they got to CAS. And I do think that's an important thing to be able to support. I think we can support that for them this next year. I don't think we're equipped to pivot by next year to have every neighborhood school be able to offer that level of support.
I don't think they would need to, wouldn't need to do it in all, they'd need to do it in 4th grade. That would be it, because we have CAS going in 5th and 6th, and then we're like, we're putting in a new program for 4th grade, this is where we're doing it. We're gonna try it for a year.
Judy, will you?
Almost like a pause.
Do you feel like from here, between here and fall, like, you know, is that time to feel like you've come up with something that could push into our 4th grade classes and not just be about general rigor and extension, but targeted to our GT kids in
I
those
do,
classrooms?
yeah. Since we've started this conversation a number of months ago, my team and I have been in conversations about this and really brainstorming, how do we accomplish this, what does this look like, how do we do this? And yes, I do think so, yeah.
The other thing is we're looking at data from the report, like saying, okay, if we're looking at the kids that would have qualified and how are they doing after 6th grade versus the kids that went to the magnet school, they're about the same. So why are we, it doesn't make sense. And I can take the anecdotal evidence saying like this kid socially is struggling, and I think that is very valid. We have to address that, because if they're struggling in a class, if they're like the only one who's really smart and they're getting bullied, like those are things to address for sure. I don't know if this has to be the answer of we have to have a magnet school, because then we're like, are we really going to bus a kid that lives in North Provo all the way to South Provo where we're going to have a magnet school? I don't know if we're going to be able to do that. I don't know if that's a wise use of funds.
One advantage I see of this, one advantage I see of what you're talking about is the ability to maybe start engaging some of these kids younger, not right away, but like as we develop better tools, I would say, and as we're looking at this, I think some of our GT kids starting in, as young as 1st grade are not engaged in learning throughout their school days, the kids that we're really talking about, right? And so some of those patterns around engagement and feeling like they are a problem at school start pretty young. So one of the advantages of figuring out how how to be aware of where these kids are. We could use the data we're already getting on our students to kind of find and identify and make sure that they have an individual learning plan that's going to offer them a chance to grow at school. I think that would actually keep some families here, because sometimes that puts pressure on a set of parents if your child is not learning at school, and it's, you know, it's not that child's fault that they are where they are, right? And so if they're sitting in a classroom all day long in the earliest grades and not learning new things day after day, I think that is a different set of challenges. And so I would love if by heightening our awareness right now and really making sure these students aren't falling through the cracks and being unsupported in terms of growth, we find a way that doesn't feel like either you just help your neighbors with math or your work is done and now there's nothing for you to do but just sit there. Like, I just think we've got to have better strategies for the starting younger, and I do think that then that would make this feel better. A big piece with this is, one of the tricky things is specific to math, and I know I sent out an email to Daryl and Wendy around like an option, but I do think finding a way through whatever that is at each school to really keep kids engaged in math so that they find a peer group around that specific topic. Also, same with like writer's workshop and some of those things, but having some kind of math challenge that isn't just linear, right? It doesn't have to be, well, you finished your first grade math book, so now you do your second grade math book, but rather, how do you now use, you know, now you can think critically with math, but now how do we get you to extend your thinking and solve this other thing or apply this math? And that can start
And I think
all
that's
the way
where
through.
we have Judy.
Yeah.
She's the expert. We don't have
Yeah.
to figure that out. We can just say, hey, this is the 5-year
Yeah.
plan of
We're-
what we want to see.
We're in a different age too, where we have AI, we have other things that can help the teachers to come up with extra things for these. I'm not saying that we can still purchase things to help the gifted and talented kids, whatever. I would also like to see a track for all the 6th grade kids, a math track if they're high in all grades. So once they get into middle school, you see, okay, this is your NWEA scores were here, so I think this is your track you should be in for math. This is your NWEA scores for English. This is the track you should be in. I would like to see something like that.
I think there's a difference of having the options at the schools versus the site. They're immersed in it. I mean, we have like dual language immersion, right? One of our schools has a music immersion. I mean, my sons still talk about some of the different projects they got to work on in CAS, where it was an entire couple of months where they were really diving into like the medieval, and they did it in all different facets, right? It wasn't just about accelerated math.
Right.
It was their social studies, it was their writing, their reading, the opportunities that they could do as an entire class that any amazing teacher at a neighborhood school that has a whole spectrum of students is not going to be able to provide that for those students who could really benefit from that. And I just think that's a very valuable thing for those students who need it. FTE is going to be distributed the same, right? I feel it's an important option that we offer.
It will be distributed the same as long as you have numbers of students who choose to go to it.
Yes.
If you don't, then
That is
it will
true.
cost you money.
I think we can get a good sized class.
Do we need more time to discuss this, or are we ready to vote on it later?
I think we
I
need
feel
more
like we've
time.
been
I don't
discussing it
think-
for a long time.
I guess
Or should we move on to the next topic?
Go ahead, Nick.
my question is, okay, if we do go with the original proposal, we're gonna pilot in 4th grade, we're gonna go down to a single site. What does that look like for Judy's team? Like, that's kind of building 2 separate things. Is that possible? I mean, what is the reality of that by the fall?
Because we're also
As opposed to
asking her
focusing on one or the other.
Because we're asking her to do both too. We're asking her to put some in the schools as
We
well.
asked it last November,
Yeah, or last March.
yeah. Right.
I think if you're gonna start with a fourth grade, whether you're gonna have extensive support for a fourth grade teacher that's gonna be teaching truly gifted kids versus what you're doing out in neighborhood schools is you're providing that, you're digging deeper into those standards in my mind. There is a slight difference in what that's going to look like. It's not going to be identical.
Right.
So it is creating two separate, if you're gonna do it right, it is gonna look different.
Right.
Doesn't mean you can't utilize both of those, but there are two other concerns I wanna draw attention to, and that is the more assessments that you put in place to determine whether or not a student belongs in this program, if you don't want to start excluding kids based on which parents know that those things are available to them, you have to administer those assessments to every single student.
I don't think so.
And
Like
when
to
you,
use NWEA as a, like a screening test and then offer them, say, wherever we are right now on our admittance for our current cast, say, this is, if you score at this level, then you, unless you, and tell parents, you could ask for the COGAT, but otherwise you need to be at least here on your NWEA to have that screener.
you could just recognize how much time are you gonna
Yeah.
make those students take that outside of the school
Right.
day? Is that
Right.
going to be required within the school day? What is the capacity of teams to administer that when you're thinking about
Right.
third graders across the district? So the logistics are things that I have to worry about in terms of what that's going to look like. The other thing I get concerned about is as soon as you introduce a tracking system, you by default track everybody in the system. You don't just track gifted and talented. As soon as you create a gifted and talented track that is entry only based on a test score, you've tracked everyone else for the next 6 years who didn't meet that point.
Right, so help me understand then, if you move this back into neighborhood schools, but you're not identifying kids specifically for supports, what that looks like, right?
I don't anticipate that that's necessarily going to be truly gifted and talented. I see that much more
So
as
we just have some enrichment, but we don't
I
really
feel
have
like
teachers.
it. I feel like it. Yes, I feel like it would have to be at that unless you picked like 2 model sites where you're going to say this
And then
this
have
is what we're,
different
and then you're
than where
basically at
we
a
are now.
satellite site.
Right. Yeah, so that, just so people know, that's actually, I think that is the decision, right? It's to not test and identify students, and just to try to make sure we're challenging
In the same way that we
students.
don't take a
Right.
special education
Right,
student
absolutely.
and generally stuff them in a separate
Correct.
location. We educate them with their general education peers and we
Yes.
create a plan for them to meet their needs. That's how you would be looking at it at a neighborhood school.
Unless they need it, but to meet specific needs, we absolutely do have to
Yes.
test them and qualify them.
Yes.
And
And
they
we
have to
do
be
have a
2
classroom
standard
for some who need
deviations
it.
below the mean to qualify for certain services, right? Like,
Yes.
we do that
Yes.
and provide supports.
Yes.
I think it's 2 separate decisions. Do we have a CAS classroom? And if so, how do we determine who goes there, right? I mean, the principles of AVID are that students can elect into rigor and things like that, and I think there should be some kind of a baseline, but I don't know that we say it has to be a certain test, and
But
if,
then-
if you're under it by a few points, you can't be in it, right? Like
I
that's,
have a real hard time, once you
Then we're
open
not
up that
talking
door,
about
I
that.
get,
That shows what happened with our
cannot.
two
That's where we are now.
That's where we're at now.
That's where we are now.
And that's what has frustrated parents is that is in part what's happened and you know, when I met with Doug and Carla and we were talking about even secondary math, one of the issues that's happened is because students can opt into accelerated math at any point, they want to opt into it even if they don't qualify for it, and so the teacher is frustrated because
Yeah,
they
they're
can't
having to bring
actually
people
move the
along.
students in
That's
the direction
happening
that
right
they
now.
want to go because they're not tested in it. If you're
Yeah.
truly going to make it that a parent can choose, then it should be in the neighborhood
Just in your
schools.
schools,
We
yeah.
demonstrate that this is what we have to offer, and then the parent chooses that they want to have their child participate
I'm
in that
not
activity.
saying that we keep it completely open, right? You need to have like the recommendations of teachers and, I mean, there needs to be a criteria, but your concern about all this testing, I don't know that we need to only base it off of that.
I don't think we're at a place where we can make a decision. I think there is more conversation to be had, and if it doesn't cost us extra, then maybe we should continue. We need to be putting this on at least once a month, or maybe every time we need to have Cass on there, or whatever we're gonna do for our accelerated students. I personally don't feel like we're at a spot where we're gonna make a good decision because we're all over the place.
But what
And we
more
have lots of
information
questions
do
and
we
testing.
need to have?
What's
I
the
guess
testing
that-
gonna be? What are the, cause then we go to the one site and then we decide later that's not the right thing. Then we've just blown up 3 sites.
Right, no, I understand that.
When do we need to decide though for next year? Because that should be soon.
Like, by next board meeting.
Okay.
I don't think we're gonna be there by next board meeting. That is
Well,
just
we
my
need to-
opinion.
Do we need to have a
Like,
special
be
board
where, like
meeting
what,
next week?
yeah, tell us, like, I think it's important to hear, like, what are the pieces that need to be in place that aren't in place now in terms of what we need to understand to make a decision?
I think we should all read Judy's thing again. You guys, it's very clear.
We have read it.
I think it's very clear.
We're not serving all the
We're not
students.
serving the students we need to serve.
And
we're,
but I worry that if we do a magnet site, we're not gonna be, are they gonna come? That, like, are they already in? I read many of those emails where they're like, oh, my kid was already in DLI. Well, are they gonna leave DLI to come to this? I don't know. This way, if they stay in DLI, they can still have both DLI and get some
And
extra support.
enrichment. Right. Yep.
Well, I think when you look at a neighborhood site, and that again would be up for the district to sort out, but some of the supports we're talking about, if you were in DLI, it wouldn't be the same. You would probably be in a DLI, right? Like, I mean, unless we're gonna also fragment DLI into,
Well, we
Right.
already integrate students though in DLI schools for specialties, so this is not a
Yeah.
difficult thing to
Okay.
integrate in that
Okay.
respect. In my mind,
Okay.
we could.
that's helpful.
I do think we need to keep in mind, the data we're looking at is with the current state of
Yeah,
the
that's
program,
right.
and we are acknowledging that we have
It has
not
been. Yeah.
sufficiently supported that program.
Right.
And so if we're providing better supports, will that change the data and the amount of people who want to
I don't know that that will
participate?
change that 60% opt out unless we're busing the whole district and
Well, that is the key, right? Like, if we are
But
committed
are-
to it, then are we willing to commit the resources to bus to it? Right? If we are committed to really this being the
Yeah.
way we're gonna meet these students' needs, I feel like that is a decision that we would be willing to commit to bus to it. Right? Like, so, because that's when you actually get the students that need to be there. I mean, those parents will choose it, and I would be curious to dive into the data now to see if you take that, 97 to 99th percentile students, how many of them are not opting in right now? Do we know that? Do you have a feel for that?
I didn't hear that last
If you
part of
take
what
your
said.
97 to 99th percentile students, how many of them are not opting into CAS right now? How many of them are staying in their neighborhood schools, right? Like, that's just tricky data. We don't really know that. But if, so if we're saying we think the very best way to meet that need of these students would be this way, then we would need to be willing, in my view, to be equitable and bus everybody to it. So it's not an inexpensive proposition, but I think that would be the right way to meet those needs, because when we had one program in the district and there was a bus, that program was full, every class, and the standards were super stringent to get in. And they didn't sit and teach a 10-person class ever, to my knowledge. I don't know, but it might be at first that you did, right? Because people might not yet trust. I don't really know that. We don't know any of that. But I'm just saying, I feel like that we would have to be willing to say we're committed to that.
So we'll have Gina go, and then let us recognize we're not going to solve this tonight, and we will move on after Gina. Go ahead.
Maybe it's for the next discussion, but I know that there were inequities as far as racial disparities previously. Those need to be looked at.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
there's already a racial disparity.
I know
Well,
that
and
there was
gender is a gender
there was a
discrimination.
feeling of elitism that was going on with the previous one, and so we were trying to eliminate that. That there were people, because it was a choice in type of thing for parents. I
Yeah.
worry about that coming back.
Yes, I agree.
So we can do that in the next discussion, but there's so much that we have to do. I don't know that another board meeting is gonna get us where we need to, that's just my.
So Gina, what you're saying is we keep, just hold
Just
steady
hold
where we're at
steady.
and we
Keep
build
doing what we're
something in the
doing
next
until we
year.
figure out what we're gonna do, because right now it's like, this sounds nice, this sounds nice, this sounds nice.
Right.
But we're gonna move forward with this one because that's what's on the table, and I'm not sure we're convinced that's really what we need to do. So just keeping the course until we can actually have a good plan in place. My only concern with that is that it's gonna get pushed down, and then we're gonna be back to where we
Let
are.
me ask you this, if we were to keep things in place, but at this year too, I'm not directing Judy. You're directing Judy.
You're asking
But
questions.
Judy at the same time looks at our fourth graders and tries to implement some stuff for our fourth graders this coming year while we keep status quo
In our neighborhood
in our
schools.
neighborhood schools.
So
If-
meaning the 2 sites run as normal, we enter 4th grade if they want to or meet the needs and let them do their thing.
Let them do their thing through this year.
We start an enrichment
And
program
enrichment
through all the
programs at all
schools
the
and
other
see how it
schools. And
goes.
see how it goes.
Go ahead, Jason.
How low do you go to accept students into that program?
Yeah, that's
Because
my
right now, we're
question.
going down so far
I agree.
that we're struggling to have kids in the program that can be successful. So
Yes.
if we're going to keep the 2 classes,
Yes.
and we're making that decision, we're trying to decide, do we keep them full like we've tried to do in the past, and that means we just keep going down the list? Or do we set a standard and say, and that's part of this conversation about
Yeah.
supporting the schools or supporting this program. I guess I would need to understand a little bit more what support means, because we built what we have. And so I don't think they're not supported, it's just, is what we have meeting our needs? And I would say it's not if we're saying it's a gifted program.
Right.
Right.
I agree.
Right. All right. This is just an idea for next time. Yeah, okay. What if we did just pause a 4th grade cohort, coming in this next year? We keep our 2 sites. We work on what it's gonna look like if we push, it won't be Grifton and Townsend, we've discussed that, right? But enrichment, I guess enrichment, I don't know, is that what we're calling it, in the 4th grade, 5th grade, 6th grade? That way, and then we could start a single site at 4th and 5th grade the next year if we decide we do want a satellite or a magnet site. And then we only have a
One more
6th
year
grade
of
to
the
phase
6th
out.
grade.
That actually maybe is like a logistical nightmare, but
All
I
right,
just feel like
a
a
lot
pause
for
is
everyone to ponder. We're gonna move on for today and bring this back, and in the meantime,
I think we'll know more.
figure out how you can get your questions and/or how we can
Yeah,
organize
because I'm
this, I
not, I'm
guess, but-
unclear.
And I'm
what
also
we'll
getting
know.
out the chocolate for myself, because.
I'm not unclear what we'll know
Uh-oh.
differently next time than we know now. That's
Yeah,
that's what I'm not
I don't
clear
know
on,
what-
Yeah.
in terms of just making a decision. What will we know next time that we don't know now? So why don't we just make a painful decision, I guess is the question I have.
I think after this big discussion, there's a lot to consider for this topic. And also, we have a lot of topics we want to
I
get to.
understand that.
And so if we can afford another 2 weeks for us to kind of sit with it and come back to it,
Okay.
I think that'll be best for now.
Okay.
And hopefully this one won't be quite as involved, won't need as much chocolate. Let's go ahead and talk about, let's talk about district positions that were on here, on a proposed budget. Do you want to speak to that for a second, Wendy, and then we can decide?
One of the things that we could look at in terms, one of the things that we've already done is there are several positions that we haven't rehired for, and so we're continuing to do that through a hiring freeze, basically. So anything that opens up, we have to evaluate and determine if that's something that we're going to continue. I think the other piece of this is we have, we've talked about, we have social workers, we have PBIS coaches, we have district specialists. Are there places where that piece can be pared down, and we don't want to pull somebody's contract away, but it's more about if a person were to leave or they chose to go half-time, do we not go back in and hire for that full position? So for example, if a social worker came forward and said, I would rather work half-time, do we allow them to go to half-time and then not rehire that and redistribute that workload across the board? So those are just some things that we have kind of looked at and talked about, and that would vary based on what the decisions would be there. That's a harder lift at this point, because many of the positions that I feel like we have are ones that we actually need at this point. It's more, and to repurpose those individuals is not necessarily a huge cost savings, because they're not an individual that's retiring. So a good example would be like our PBIS coaches. We have one that's leaving, that's retiring. So an idea is we can either not replace that position, so that can retract it. We've also talked about reappropriating those funds for those individuals when we were asking on our ask for special education to have an increase in funding, that we would put that money towards basically creating a behavior team that would go out and support extensively at each of the schools and really help to support trained teachers and behavior specialists and really ramp up the skill set of those individuals. So repurposing those individuals in that process. So that's why we were talking about online. Oh, my eyes are not working. 19, like reduced PBIS coaches. There are 3 total. We can automatically out of the gate reduce that by 1, and that doesn't affect anybody's job in that process. It's always about workload, right? As Heather well knows, when we go from 7 to 6, you go from 3 to 2. Now you're serving more schools, right? In that process, and what that might look like.
What is your recommendation? So first we have the retiring within the district. That's
already done.
2.
Yeah, that's already done.
That's already done.
Yep, it's done.
Okay.
You've already saved it. You're welcome.
We're all
That was easy.
good
You
with that.
didn't even have to make a decision on that one. It's already done. You're welcome.
But can I ask a question about that? Can I just ask a question around, like, how can we check in as a board though and make sure that what we haven't done is created a workload though that will burn out employees that we really need to keep? I'm looking at you, Devin. But I'm just saying in general, right? Like, I understand that maybe this feels, I think, to some parents and people looking at the spreadsheet like an obvious, easy thing, but I want people to know that we want to hear if the consequence of that becomes someone's being asked to lift something that isn't actually liftable without completely burning them out, and in which case that is unwise in my view as a place to save money, because we really value our employees. We have amazing employees at the district office, and I don't want to lose them or to send a message that they're not.
Agreed.
We don't see how busy they are. When the district people came in and shared what they do and the scope of their work to the board, I was like, oh my gosh, each one of you is doing the job of 10 people. So I recognize that we are a small district, but all of these jobs still need to be done. And so we end up with people doing more than one person's job. And so I thank you, I guess, for not replacing them, but also please tell us and be honest if the consequence is unhealthy for employees. That's what I would say.
Absolutely. I think we've done okay with the collapses that we've made so far. I do think there would be others that would be a much heavier lift, and things like if you told Judy you were going to reduce her specialist or take away a reading specialist or something, she would curl up in a fetal position. Right. Like there are just things that you can't have this discussion about CAS and DLI and all of those things if you're gonna reduce those particular individuals. So that's a savings we already have right there is the 300,000. I actually think it might be a little bit higher than that when I'm thinking about there's a couple of other positions that we haven't replaced either. So
your question on the PBIS and behavior, my personal thought is we've talked a lot about behavior the last couple of years and how our teachers need support. And so if that position is best served by we need someone there to support the behavior in their district, I'm fine to
Just
to
repurpose that.
repurpose it and not have a cost saving, right? But if you
Yeah.
think there's other ways to do that,
And we can submit a more formalized proposal about what that would look like. We have, when it says after-school programs online, I can't read what that says. Does it say seven? Thank you. My eyes have stopped working. When we have after-school programs, we have 2 employees that work as coordinators. One is, I believe, retiring. So that one is an easy position, and the other individual, we think that we can repurpose into a different, it'll be a similar role, but just different, so that we don't have to rehire for that position. So that should be taken care of, so we
Was
can.
after school ever paid for through grants?
It is paid for
It
through
is
grants.
right now,
Yeah.
21st century.
Okay, but we are losing those?
We usually, yeah, so we usually don't put people on that grant money, so we'll put things like, we've moved our people over into our general fund, because you don't want people worrying year to year if they're gonna have a job as a result of that when they're a contracted employee. The 21st Century Grant, we've kind of asked Boys and Girls Club to head up, because they just have to have a partner in that, and they're probably more well-suited to actually manage that. Then we ended up duplicating a lot of services between Boys and Girls Club and us, and so if we could just work more collaboratively,
And
we're
their new
not
site should
duplicating.
be open
Yes.
soon.
Yep.
so on the after school, saying that we want the cost savings is just reallocating how we're doing it. It's not saying we're getting rid of all after school programs, it's moving it to the Boys and Girls Club primarily,
Correct.
right?
So
Okay.
it wouldn't have any at schools?
There are some
They
schools
do
that can
some
use their own
base-
funds.
They
to
use
do
discretionary money to
That's
do
just
some
gonna
of
ask why,
that.
is that some schools do after school, some don't, and it's just a.
things. It's just a choice.
Yep.
So they would use like TSSA money?
TSSA, yeah, they could.
Okay.
And the Boys and Girls Club, do they do some of that after school that's their programming but in our school, so it feels like an
Yes.
after school
Yes.
club?
Yes. and Franklin both had sites where they have that.
And it
Do
is
all
important.
students have access to those programs, the Boys and
Say that
Girls?
again, I'm
Do
sorry.
all students have access to those after-school programs that the Boys and Girls Club are?
I don't
helping
know the
run?
answer to that. I would have to ask Charity that, but I could get you the
Okay.
answer to that.
Okay.
Okay. Generally, the way they run is you have X number of spots, and usually what happens is you may have a waiting list. It just depends on the site. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. And then the way that we would do it is the way that I've done it in the past is you would have a waiting list, and then once a student had missed X number of times,
Okay.
then you pull them off and open up the next spot for the next
Because
student.
don't the Boys and Girls Club, you qualify for boys, like if you're a kind of a club kid, you already receive those after-school.
Not the way that it goes into like Timpanogos and
Okay.
Franklin, so.
I think it's just the whole program, and I don't know about non-Title I schools.
Okay.
But at Timpanogos, they run it, and I know of a couple of kids who attend the after-school program, but I don't think would qualify, haven't seen the parents'
Right,
income
right.
tax returns, but
Okay.
who wouldn't qualify based on money or even based on needing additional help
They
in
can
school.
still participate.
But they still
Okay.
participate in the after-school.
Jared's Heights just sent me a great text that says Boys and Girls Club is an opt-in by parents open to all.
Great,
Amazing.
thanks, Jared. Thank you, Jared.
So what decision do you need from us on that line item?
Just making sure a thumbs up, you're okay, that's the direction we're gonna go.
So in schools that don't partner with the Boys and Girls Club, they just would no longer have any after-school programming?
Most of them are not having this after-school programming through 21st Century anyway, so they haven't
It's
had that.
already
They haven't-
impacted
That's already
those schools.
impacted those schools.
Okay. So this reflects the one retiring employee and the savings from not replacing them? Correct. What do people feel about that? We good? Okay.
As long as I was just curious, like if, like, that's, certain elementary has like a club that they really like keeping, they can still do
absolutely
it.
can
Oh, they
still
can
pay
absolutely.
But they can
out of
also,
their
they pay out of their
Their
own.
discretionary.
Those two
Discretionary,
people
can they-
mostly supported the schools that had the 21st century programs and schools that were doing like the foundation programs where, so
Could the foundation still support a school if they wanted to use part of their own discretionary fund, but apply to the foundation
apply
for
for a grant
support?
from the
like they're
foundation.
doing that this year.
Okay,
So-
so, okay, thank Thank you.
All right, we have a couple items on the list related to music in our district. One was the 5th, 6th grade band orchestra. The other one was the Kadai music teachers. We received a lot of emails about these.
So far, I have
Thoughts?
81 people say keep.
And
How many said
get rid of?
No, there were 2 people that said cut.
Oh, really?
And 1 person that said restructure.
Restructure.
Yes.
Yeah.
Rachel,
And
you look like you're
Juliana's here to answer questions
Yeah.
about Kodai, if you
I-
have questions.
I did orchestra like all my schooling life, but I did do band in the 6th grade. I did the flute, and I do know that a lot of the kids that did end up doing it usually continue to do it in the middle school and then continue to high school. I think that's like the main pathway that a lot of our band kids actually go through, and that it is a good opportunity to get more into music. And I've seen how like our orchestra and our band and our choir have gone to region, have gone to state. They've done really well, represent our district and our school. And I know that they're very passionate about being a part of music as well.
I have out-of-state visitors sometimes come to our concerts and are impressed with our middle school
They're good.
performance levels, right? Their
I have a
skills.
hard time cutting the 6th grade based on just the number of emails we received. Like that one was,
Also, so many students have, I mean, that's something that every student has access to. So I do really see that as something that benefits every student in every part of our city. And many of the students who continue, it feels like into middle and high school, who haven't already had like parents who are paying for private lessons, this is their entry point that gives them the same kind of access. So from my perspective, it's really important.
And I think that as a 6th grader access, if you haven't played an instrument, it's easier to like not feel as vulnerable doing that as a 6th grader than
Yes.
walking into a middle school saying, maybe I'll try band. I mean, I just,
Yes, I
I my
agree.
kids that they're like, no, I'm not gonna do
Yeah,
that.
no
But
way.
my 6th grader, like, yeah, I don't know.
Well, I feel that we've built a really good, our team has built a really good program for both band and orchestra, right? It goes from 6th grade all the way up, and it's one of those things that helps our students academically, but also they want to be in school, which keeps them there, and they learn a lot of other life skills too. So
Really quickly about that, so our current structure though, are the band or orchestra teachers rotate, they rotate through the elementary schools. And so the scheduling is dependent on, so some schools do it after school, before, some are doing it during school, correct?
Just Lakeview does it, Lakeview and Provo Peaks do it before school.
Okay.
All the rest are during the school hours.
Okay.
and it's 2 teachers that are rotating it.
And the orchestra teachers, this is our 4th or 5th orchestra teacher in 5
Fifth
years.
orchestra teacher, yeah. It's 2 full-time teachers, but then we have 2 hourly people because the 2 full-time teachers can't get around to all the schools.
Yeah.
So I'm hearing we're keeping 5th, 6th, we're supportive of all the good benefits that it does for our students, yeah?
Yes.
Okay. So let's talk about Kadai Music. That is our elementary music program. I'll go ahead and start and just say I think music's important and sets a good foundation, and I don't think it should be on our list to consider cutting, so I don't.
I do have a question about this, and maybe this is just for me not being here last meeting. Why is it a zero sum, like no savings?
Because we weren't cutting it.
Oh, you weren't cutting?
We recommended a no cut
A no
on that.
cut on that one, okay.
I just like that this is Provo City School District. Like, that's really cool that we have a Kadai teacher in every elementary school. I think that sets us apart, and so I don't think we should touch it.
We value what our teachers do for our students.
I think one of the realizations that I want everyone to be aware of is that at the state level, the Beverly Taylor Sorensen Arts Grant, which funds our visual arts or regular music teachers that are not Kodai, that money is the same amount, and they're opening it up so more schools can apply for it. So the amount that we will have per school will actually go down. So what that means is for our schools to keep those other individuals, they will have to subsidize that through their discretionary funding. remembering that like you can't subsidize that through land trust because it has to be
Right.
tied to your academic goals, right? So you have to use your 0060 to be able to do that. So I just want to make you aware of that will put added stress on principals for individuals that have been, say, a full-time teacher where Beverly Taylor Sorensen has provided, say, 0.6. And then they've made them a full-time individual, as that number could go down, if I'm remembering
Yep.
right.
But with this, and we currently actually subsidize the half that is funded by the district by about $200,000.
On top of
The half a teacher, they're giving us basically 75,000 per half, and that's for benefits and everything. So there is.
Still is subsidizing when it
It's
takes
still
place,
subsidized, but if they want to keep them full-time, which most teachers are looking for a full-time position, that other half has to be paid for by the school.
Is this a site-based decision around though, if a principal were to say, could they choose that they would want to make sure they fund that BTS or other art? Do you know what I'm saying, specialist?
They have to apply.
Instead of their Kodai teacher though, I'm just saying, is that a site-based decision or is it around whether or not they make that trade-off? If they were facing that trade-off, right? Could that principal decide?
Yes.
I would rather fund, if I'm only sure I'm gonna fund one, here's which we choose as a local school, or is that something that is dictated from the district?
So right now, we're funding one of those Kodai teachers
Okay.
for each of our schools.
So
if I'm
every school,
correct.
I just want to make sure, every school, right, all 13 elementaries have one Kodai teacher right now?
Correct.
Yes.
Correct.
Okay.
And then you have BTS in addition to that, which they can use for drama, they can use it for visual arts, they could use it for whatever, as long as it meets the requirements of BTS. So they are using discretionary funding to come in and sometimes to subsidize that. Sometimes they share between two schools, so that has happened, although is less common. If we were to say you're going to use that BTS money and that's all you get, and then you have to choose, then it would be up to the principal to then make that choice, and you would take that money that you're using for Kodai, which is actually coming from class size reduction, and you would put that money into genuine class size reduction. Now, I do want to make it really clear that teachers love having certified teachers.
Yeah.
So your grade level teachers love having our certified teachers
Right,
as
that
their
was
specialties because just the sheer fact that when you have an instructional assistant that doesn't have that background, they often get interrupted in terms of what that prep time looks like. And so it does create more quality prep time for our elementary teachers, which is already at a small amount, in my opinion, in comparison to middle school and high school.
Meg? Just with BTS, so schools apply, but some may not get the grant, the monies. Or,
Know of a
I guess I'm just
single
kind of
school that has
curious.
that.
Last year, 2 of ours didn't get it.
Timpanogos is in
And
the
Canyon
process right
Crest,
now.
Canyon Crest didn't have it.
Wasatch opted out 2 years
But
ago.
Wasatch is doing it this year.
And why would you opt out? Yeah, why would you opt out? I don't, this.
Because of the requirements of the grant.
That and there's a limited amount of time that students can be pulled for activities, right? And so at certain schools, they start to try to determine, do I have enough time for language arts, math, science?
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Based on the number of people hired, and that's how those two schools both came to that conclusion when they made that decision, is there were a lot of things competing for time, and they had enough other prep options to not have to keep all of those things to offer prep for students.
So that piece is a principal decision. We
Got
don't
it.
force them to
Then are
apply
they
for
subsidizing
BTS.
those other prep options or specialties
Yes.
from their own budget? Because it's just not.
Not media center we provide
Not Kodai
that
only, okay,
individual,
but
so
like
they're,
they
so
have
we
art,
provide
the drama.
PE.
Yeah.
Okay.
We don't provide
Well, no,
PE.
we do PE.
I was like, yes, we
just
do.
don't call it PE, structured
We don't,
recess.
Structured recess.
Structural activity.
And is it right that we can't use though, like, you could not apply for BTS funding the way I read the grant and use it, for example, for something like Kodai, because you have to use it in the classroom, supporting the classroom curriculum, not, is that true? I think, yeah, Jared.
ETS is designed for arts integration.
Right,
Okay.
that's as I read
And
it.
so all their proposals have to demonstrate
Right,
that.
yeah.
Okay.
Whereas the
Can I
guy
ask
follows
this
a
a question?
music curriculum with
Curriculum,
standards,
yeah.
and, yeah. Okay, so we're not going to change anything with music, is what I'm hearing then, correct? Okay, moving forward.
See, you didn't even need to come in here for it. They
Well,
already-
I just want to say thank you. I do want.
She's
to
like
say that.
relieved.
Well, I
She's
enjoy
like
hearing
bullets.
the conversation going on, and just to, I appreciate the conversations that each of you are participating in and the thought that you put into it. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, trying to prioritize based on when we need to make decisions by. I think
PBIS
there's
coaches?
two that I wrote down, and so I'm going to throw them out, Wendy, and you tell me if this needs to be discussed now or not. So, high school student-teacher ratio, as well as, this wasn't on the final one, but it was on the original one, removing the requirement to have 2 English classes per grade level.
So let's talk about. So that is on there. I just called it something different.
Oh,
So
okay.
or it's on the possible proposal. It wasn't on the original one. One of the two.
Okay.
I can't remember which one. So reducing the high school teacher ratio from 28 to 28.5, or increasing the student to teacher ratio from 28 to 28.5 costs each high school 1 FTE. So that's 1 teacher across the board. And so that's why that number is sitting at 220,000. Daryl, do you want to speak to that a little bit about what high school principals said? Do they feel like that's gonna?
I think with the raise in their land trust money, it's not one across the board, it's one at each school.
That's what I meant. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, I
Yeah.
misspoke. Thank you for clarifying
So they
that.
feel like they can make that up.
Okay.
I think that's a good one.
Okay. The other one is, let me find it.
So, can we just, how does the board feel about doing that then? Is that something we want to move forward on? Do we need some discussion about that? Are there unintended consequences?
No, and I think we've talked about, with the whole equity model, that we're gonna allow, if there is a need, they could come and petition what that specific need might be if we cut them short somewhere. So
Okay.
I think that just needs to be brought in there in case, so we're not cutting programs or anything, right?
Yeah.
Just make sure we understand that piece, I guess.
But we're not gonna suddenly have teachers coming to us saying, now I have 10 more kids in my class because you changed the ratio.
I'm not gonna guarantee that a teacher's not gonna come and complain about more kids in their class. There's just a lot of reasons that that could happen.
That
Okay,
might be
and-
because we have a better attendance policy.
Oh, well, there you go. On a roll.
Can I ask a question? Do we have a parent just asked me this today. Do we have a baseline in our secondary schools that says in general, like here's an example. Years ago, only one high school in any given year often had like an AP physics class because they didn't have enrollment that could sustain it at both. So they would kind of flip back and forth. So someone was saying, do we now have a cut place where we say enrollment under X in a high school, we don't, unless it's a legally required offering, we don't have that class? Do you know what I'm saying? I said I didn't think we did.
No, I don't think there's a hard line. I mean, I think we all have our opinion on that, and I think it depends too, is this class that you're referring
Right,
to, is
right.
it one
I
that's
don't
on the
even
way
know.
out, or is it one we're trying to build?
Right,
Or we keep
okay.
12 students in there hoping to
Yeah.
build it, or
Sure.
with 12 students and we know it's phasing out, would we keep it, right?
Okay, we just
I think
don't, they
that's
just want to know,
school-
do we have a
No, we
hard
don't have a
enrollment
hard- no,
line
no.
when we say we won't
No.
fund that FTE?
No.
I didn't think we did. Okay, that's all. Thank you.
The other one that you're referring to, Jennifer, is on line 11, which is just looking at that we felt we could save 6 FTE in the elementary schools, where in the upper grades we were seeing classes of 3 that could have been classes of 2. And so that would save 6 FTE overall. So as we were looking at those students moving into their next cohort and looking at those numbers, we felt like we could push those to 2 classes instead of them having 3. So,
Oh, okay.
so it would not affect the lower grades, and it would not move any class from 2 to 1. except at your DLI school. So we're
Right.
talking, this is
Right,
all
right,
talking
right.
about
I know. That's
non-DLI.
fine.
So that one's a pretty easy,
And if they get over 30, how many?
they get to 30,
they
get
get
an instructional
named.
assistant, yeah.
Okay.
And if we get a class where it's a non-DLI school and we have 2 classes and both classes are
That 32?
really small,
Then we need to look at that as well, yes.
can we change the rules
Yes.
and say they can have 1 English cohort that year?
Yes. And as we were looking through our enrollment that Devin had, when we scanned those in cabinet on Monday, I didn't have any of those at this point in time at the non-DLI schools. Like, those numbers are sitting at like 38.
Oh, okay.
So
I
I
think
can't,
I
so
thought
I,
there was a first grade class at a school I just looked at on Domo that was pretty small, but also it was a school where I felt like that was probably beneficial to those kids.
yes,
So
yes.
you're talking
Yeah,
about
probably
Franklin. Franklin
yeah,
has
yeah,
27 first graders split
Yeah.
into 2
Nice.
classes. So yes.
So with the 6.6 million that we would save on this one.
660,000.
Sorry.
Whoa, that
I
would
wish
be
it was
awesome.
It
6
would be awesome if it was 6 million.
You've solved our
That would be
problem.
amazing.
I can't read today either.
Yeah.
So, okay, no, with the 660, so 6 teachers essentially, right?
Yeah.
Would we eat those in attrition?
Yes.
Okay.
Ah, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, you want to make sure we're not firing 6 people. No, we
No,
would just do
well,
that through
I
attrition.
mean, I'm not,
Yeah.
I've had to fire people at my
I
own
know.
work. So I understand when the money's not there, the money's not there, but if this can be done through attrition, that's even better.
They're
But
not 2 really small English classes at Canyon Crest?
First and third grade.
Oh, so,
But they're just
There's
as-
only one class.
they already are
just
saying.
one class.
Oh,
Already
okay.
one class.
Yeah,
Okay. So,
yeah.
but- okay,
And
so
I
is
believe
everyone
there's a
okay
small
with,
at Wasatch.
with moving
too.
forward on that?
Yeah.
Yep.
Another popular thing was the Chromebooks.
Yeah, and we put that in as a potential savings. Kara, just a couple of things to think about. I do think we want to reduce the number of Chromebooks that we're going to end up having at the elementary school, and I think we're going to have some legislation that also helps support with that. I think we're also looking at some ways to streamline and make the collection of Chromebooks more efficient. The other piece of this, though, is that it almost ends up in kind of a net gain, because if we go to the middle school and they don't, and the law passes that says we can't require a student to take it home, then we have to have a way to charge those Chromebooks, and that would require the purchasing of Chromebook carts to make that happen. So the offset cost that you would save at the elementary, you're gonna have an increased cost
I see.
at the middle school as a result. So I think that's gonna end up being a wash for this first year. And then once that happens, then we'll probably see some reductions in the amount that it costs, especially because Devin was also talking about charging like a rental fee, which we're allowed to do at the high school level. So we would charge a rental fee each year, and then as a senior, they could either get that returned to them if they return the Chromebook, or they could just keep the Chromebook.
So, and I feel like the Chromebook discussion is maybe beyond the scope of budget, right? Like, cause I
Yes.
feel like there is a conversation to be had, and that there's might be an immediate cost savings or not. It might just be an immediate wash, but still a decision.
Oh, no question.
In where we spend and don't spend right now. Personally, I would rather spend in a way that supports actually less Chromebook time in our elementary schools, especially, and in our middle schools a bit. But then there's that other discussion, I feel like, that isn't in the scope of this conversation around kind of what we know our best practices and or what we want our best practices to be, which I know is on everyone's mind around technology integration and how we teach our
And I think that would be a good discussion to have in an all-day board meeting, because you'll have that legislation that will have
Yeah,
come through,
yeah.
and then you can start to direct where we want that policy to lie, so we can get
And
that implemented.
Chromebooks doesn't really affect FTEs and stuff for next
No,
year.
it doesn't, so we can do that,
postpone
yeah, so we
one.
can postpone it, yep.
Are there any other pressing ones we need to talk about?
Were we looking at?
The only other one that our secondary principals had brought up was the reduction of extra days for counselors. and our reduction in extra days for instructional coaches. So I know that Momi, Lisa, and Emily, when you came last Thursday, she had indicated she would be fine reducing the number of counselor days from 20 to 10. Cammie didn't really say much about that. My personal recommendation would be to go from 20 to 15 for the first year and then kind of see where it's at. I don't know, Daryl, if you have a different view on that.
I think 20 to 15 and maybe 5 optional, because I think the issue with Momi is I don't know that she has people want to work them. So it's almost like not cutting them. I think it would.
So maybe do 20 to 10 and then choose 5 extras that they're paid at a, okay.
Oh, that's a great
Does that
idea.
make sense? Like,
Yeah, that's a
I
great
feel like
idea.
If we went to if we gave them 10, it'd, you know, or 15 with the option to opt out of 5, I think someone would opt out of
Okay.
this 5.
Okay.
And are we still getting all the jobs done? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, just because someone
That's
wants
what-
to opt out of it doesn't necessarily mean the job is.
That's
Yeah,
what we
they
need
are.
to
I
look
mean,
at.
they're usually realistically 5 days before.
Okay.
Students show up
Yeah.
5 days after. I mean,
Okay.
And if they need more, they can take those 5 and have 15.
And then we talked about moving middle school counselors from 10 to 8.
Yeah.
And then our instructional coaches have 20 extra days. We also talked about moving them from 20 to 15.
Okay, any questions on that?
Instructional coaches feel okay about that?
Ask Judy.
Judy, how do our instructional coaches?
Judy feels differently about it than anybody else because she has plenty of work for everybody to do.
Are we talking about specialists as well, or instructional?
Instructional coaches.
Instructional
coaches.
We're just talking about reducing their days?
Just reducing their days. They get 20 extra days, and so reducing those from 20 to 15.
The work that we do with instructional coaches in the summer, that works really well, that works fine. I think my only question would be if principals feel differently, but from my perspective, the work we do with them, a reduction wouldn't be overly impactful.
To 15 though, for
Mhm.
this person's time.
Right.
Okay.
Everybody good with that?
Yeah.
Okay,
It's
Gina,
on
go
the-
ahead.
I was just gonna say, we kind of, you mentioned, Wendy mentioned social workers. I noticed that social workers is on here. Is that something we need to talk about now?
I don't think so because we're not talking about reducing it. We would just look at it if we have a social worker who decides to leave, then it would be something where we would probably look at, do we need to just reassign and we can work with student services and come with a proposal on that.
Okay. Yeah, I would say if we could be part of that conversation,
Yep.
because I would be hesitant to reduce.
It is something that we hear frequently
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
are really important.
Yes.
With that, though, are we seeing like more needs at Title I schools versus non-Title I?
Yes, no question.
Well, I guess my other question, just in terms of things that we would want to make sure we decided soon enough. One was line 10, which is reducing our equity model. I just thought that might be something principals would need to know sooner.
That's a great, I'm glad you brought that one up. So we talked about reducing that by 3, and it would still give us quite a bit of flexibility because we still have other FTE that come in through DLI, through AVID. So when we talked in cabinet, what we have is we basically have a cushion of 19 and a half FTE is what I remember. 13 of those are going into the equity model at the elementary schools. So what we would do is we would take that 19 and a half and our goal would be to pull that down to 16 and a half. And then we would be evaluating each school on a case-by-case basis of where they are just based on numbers, where the equity model puts them, and then identifying if there are schools that need additional supports and providing some opportunities for conversations with principals. And then those would be documents that after we've had those conversations with principals, we'd share with you. We would be finalizing those in cabinet on the 23rd. Is that the date?
So before our next.
Yeah,
meeting.
so, yeah.
So are you saying that you're recommending we start with that, but then have the conversations and we might not actually end up at that number, we might still need to fund?
I
more
think
than
I-
the 10.
I think we can cut the 3 out and we should be fine. So I would recommend that we go ahead and list that as a potential savings on your list. And it will still give us the flexibility to make sure our schools that need the greatest support will have it.
And are we still getting extra funding this next year from the state for the work we're doing at Franklin?
I don't believe so.
No, not as of right now.
They have not given us that money.
Okay. So I guess my question is, knowing that, like, it sounds like not a big deal, 3 teachers, but that means 3 schools are gonna lose a teacher. So,
But you have to
Are
keep
we
in mind
gonna be
on
okay with
the,
that?
on the FTEs, several of them are rounded up based on the number of students that are there. So they're actually given a little bit of an extra FTE cushion and also an equity FTE. So if we pull away that on those ones that are rounded so that their class sizes are smaller, it's not gonna be quite as impactful.
okay. Any other discussion? Question? So are we good to say yes, go ahead and move forward with that?
I think what we're just asking for is allow us to explore it, and then if
Explore
for
it.
some reason something happens and we're like, no, this isn't going to work, then we can come back and say,
guess that's
sorry,
what I was
that
asking,
didn't work, right? And so
Okay.
we need a little more help here.
Okay. Melanie?
Just, I did some basic math really quick here, but we're about 2.5 million in cuts.
Good.
That's including eSchool. But,
I think that went up to 2.7 with that one, didn't it?
I don't know, because that
I
one,
did
that one's just different
You're the
anyway.
math person.
I don't know, that's what I'm saying, it's basic, I was just trying to look at the numbers really quick. But what number do we need to get to?
That all depends on
That's
what you
the
wanna
next
add back.
discussion.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can we ask though the question, because I think there is concern at schools around assistant principals, like I had that conversation about if we feel like that's, my personal feeling is that is an important position and it's really elevated our school's ability to look at their data, to move kids from level to level, to really, because I've seen those assistant principals do some of that work to help get that data parsed and ready for their PLCs on top of the other jobs I feel like they're doing in some of those places. So my personal thing there would be that that's not maybe something I would like to see happen, but I'm open to hear what other people think about that.
It's strongly not our recommendation to do that, but I will add this caveat to it. I think the piece of this is we do have to have a much larger conversation about the size of our schools and the
Yes.
boundaries and what that looks like, because I do feel like, we need to be looking at data to determine how many office discipline referrals does a school have. Do they actually need an assistant principal to do that? Are there other ways in which those assignments can be fulfilled? So I think over the course of the next year, that's something where we need to streamline that. I think if you ask Jared and Daryl about their principals and the workload that their principals have, if you tried to tell any of them you were going to take an assistant principal away, I'll let you guys speak for them.
It's non-negotiable for me.
Yeah.
That's the first and
Yeah.
second choice.
That's why I just wanted us to talk about it openly,
Yeah.
in case people are concerned. We've gotten a few emails from people
Yeah.
who were like, please don't take our assistant principal, they do so much work, and so I just wanted to have that conversation so that publicly people hear that we value and see that.
And the conversation
happening.
especially needs to not happen at Timpview while we're dealing with construction.
Yeah, no,
We
that's
need
right.
that extra person
Yeah,
for
no,
that
that's right, I
supervision,
understand that.
so.
Okay.
Yeah, while we're on that topic, Wendy, could you just publicly address, there was also an item on here about maybe changing, at Timpanogos, maybe adding an assistant principal. Where are we at on that?
Yeah, so, and I'll let Jared pipe in here as well. The feeling from the principal was at this point in time not to do that.
They would, and their community would not recommend that. And
Yeah.
As he's come back, though there's a desire for help, and the model that we had done at Franklin was what the conversation would be to replicate at Timpanogos. The desires have been moving that direction right now.
I think what we're gonna do is track some additional data in terms of what their office referrals look like. I think as you start constructing a new school, that's going to be an added burden on that administration that Clint probably isn't aware of at this point in time, and so what that's going to look like. And the reason that you would have an assistant principal over a Title I coordinator is because assistant principals actually legally can handle things like discipline, like suspension and whatnot. Title I coordinators cannot do that unless they have an administrative license. And if they're doing that and they're not assigned as an administrator, they technically can't serve in that position. So it puts us in a legal liability kind of issue. So that was the reasoning there.
So am I hearing that this next year will stay how it is?
Yep.
And then we will evaluate what's going to be best after
Moving
that?
forward, yep.
Okay. Okay, so our next board meeting at the end of the month on the 24th, we will also spend time talking about the budget. And so I think let's hold off for now on what do we need to, how much do we need to cut, because how much are we adding back in? Like, I think next time let's look at what are we going to prioritize that we do need to fund, and then see kind of where we're at and the impact on the taxpayers, and if we want to continue to adjust anything, look for other cuts, or if we're good, you know, that kind of discussion. So be thinking about that between now and then. And then unless there's anything else tonight you want to talk about on the
No,
potential cuts?
the only thing that I wanted to say is that Jason and I are going to meet with the association so that we can help kind of get a pulse on, you know, what are they willing, like what do they want their raises to look like, so that we can come back with a number if there's additional stuff that needs to be cut to kind of figure out those pieces with insurance and all of that.
We'll
So
also
we'll
have more information
about insurance
by
too.
then.
So that will help us determine whether we need to go any farther beyond this $2.5 million.
Have you heard from, I'm assuming the association, around like some of those other suggestions on here with
like furlough days
attendance
and
and
whatever.
furlough days and all of that?
No,
as
that's
well?
what I'm gonna meet with
Okay,
them
great.
about
Yeah, 'cause that
next
would
week.
help
Yep,
us to
yep,
hear that.
I think so too.
Another thing to add to that is out-of-state conferences. We have gotten emails about that.
Good. Yeah.
Not like cutting those for next year.
Not cutting them?
No, cutting.
Yeah, we
Yeah, I
have,
do
and
feel
we
like
have that,
people
and we
have
have that
supported.
pulled in our thing to reduce that by $100,000, so.
And I feel like
Oh,
as
and
a
the
board,
Avid, I
we
meant to
should
talk
also-
about the Avid travel as well.
Yeah.
Okay, we can talk about that next time for sure. And then just another thing, the whole discussion of budget, the state is in the middle of making all their decisions right now. Public ed appropriations today made their recommendations that will go to the executive appropriations, and then they'll make the final determinations. And so we really won't know where we're at on some of that until the legislative session ends, which is into March. So some of this will be a little fluid until we get some of those details. Yeah. So, okay, should we take like 5 or 10 minutes on starting on the policies, or should we just do our consent calendar questions?
Oh, you should do your consent
Okay,
calendar
let's-
questions, let's just do,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, let's save our policy review for when we go to vote on them in the business meeting then. And then consent calendar. Does anyone have any questions about the consent calendar?
I did. The Westland payment, is that for phase 1 or phase 2 of Timpview?
So the Westland payment is for the cafeteria.
Okay.
We haven't received a draw on the next phase. Or if we did, it's just this one that will be paid in February.
Okay.
So just keep in mind though that the contract has been updated so that they're combined. So when the new amounts come in, it will be both of them together. So I think I could probably add up line items, tell you which is cafeteria and which is not, but from this point forward, it will have both the new section and cafeteria. But the cafeteria is almost done being built.
When is that going to be open?
Right now, the projected timeline for it to be finished is the end of March, beginning of April, but we will not move the lunch ladies in until the new school year. One of those reasons is we can possibly use that area for testing if there's excessive noise from construction. So far, we're going to cross our fingers, but they've been pretty pleased with how much noise they thought they were going to get and how it's not quite as impactful as what they were expecting. So,
Yay. That's
Can I ask one question on that? The Utah Parent Center, is that supporting some of our speds?
Youth in custody.
Yeah, oh, that's okay, thanks. I just didn't know what exactly.
Then that contract will be ended after this year. So.
Any other consent calendar questions?
And just so you're aware, it's not only for our district, it's for all of the youth in custody around. They just give us the money to pay for everyone. So what we're wanting them to do is to take the responsibility up at the state to pay for a state program and then just give us what we're doing locally.
That makes a lot of sense.
Okay, then I'll draw your attention to the calendar items that we have on there. And go ahead.
The only one I saw was missing is we have a SAC, Student Advisory Council, on March 4th.
Okay.
So, and that one will be at Shoreline.
Okay, and that's just a few of us in there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then, I apologize, Bonnie, I didn't send this to you when we scheduled it, but if everyone wants to mark their calendars, March 18th, Wednesday night, that will be our, well, the board of directors still has to approve it, but right now it's tentatively our spring regional meeting for Utah School Board Association. And it will be hosted here at the PDC. And it will include Nebo and Alpine and Lake Mountain, Timpanogos, and Aspen Peaks. So
Alpine et al.
Exactly. All the new Alpine. So there will still be dinners just catered in instead of us going to restaurants, so we can hear each other better.
Yeah, that will be nice.
And especially support the new board members and stuff better. So, and at that one, we often have good updates from the legislative session, and then start to talk about how we take that information and start drafting our priorities for the next session as a group. So. All right. Okay, do we have a motion to adjourn our study session?
I move that we adjourn our study session.
Okay, motion made by Vice President Hills. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Board Member Boyce. We are adjourned, and we will begin our business meeting in the PDC at 7 p.m.
I didn't realize it was a different. It's really okay. I've been watching the live stream and then I